Chapter 41. Si Kong. The young man looked to be about 18 to 19 years old. He was strongly built, so much so that he could compete with Lei Chen. In his hands, he held a long spear. The spear was only about 5 feet long, but its black body gave it a shocking and chilling aura. There was also a golden dazzle on the tip of the spear. However, the spear was essentially not made of stone. It was made out of a material Su Ming had never seen before. He looked back from afar, and when his eyes landed on the spear, his heart froze in fear. It was a very, very familiar feeling. Yet, he did not know where that familiarity came from. Nonetheless, it made him feel that danger was looming over his head. Su Ming ignored everything else. Only a basic instinctual need for him to remain calm was left. That person is not wearing hides but is wearing sackcloth instead. This sort of clothes, this person must have a pretty high status in Dark Dragon Tribe. I don't regret going near Dark Dragon Tribe. A glint appeared in Su Ming's eyes as he came to an answer in his heart. I did not go within 10,000 feet of the tribe. According to the rules among the tribes, if a person or a pair stands 10,000 feet outside the area of the tribe, he or she bears no ill will. I bear you no ill will. It's just that one of my friends is within your tribe and I wanted to see her. Su Ming ran at the full speed of a 4th-level berserker of the blood solidification realm. His body was bent so low he was almost touching the surface of the snow in order to increase his speed. No tracks were left on the snow. As he ran, he shouted back towards the man pursuing him. Oh, if that's the case, if you're truly not an enemy, then don't run anymore. Come with me back to the tribe and we'll have the elder verify your identity. A cold glare flitted through the young man's eyes. He spoke slowly, but his speed did not decrease. He increased his speed instead and kept his eyes trained on Su Ming as if he was waiting for Su Ming to hesitate. As an outsider, how can I just walk into your tribe? There were no signs of faltering on Su Ming's side as he laughed and spoke to the man. True. Then what is the name of the person you know? The young man spoke slowly once again as he continued giving chase. His demeanor did not change, but he did narrow his eyes. I don't know her name, but I do know that she wears white and she's really beautiful. As Su Ming spoke and continued fleeing, he turned back to look at his pursuer. He saw a hint of murderous intent in the man's eyes when he heard Su Ming's words. He understood then. Su Ming had been wondering why the man would attack him with such ferocity even when he had not gone within 10,000 feet of the tribe. He was still not considered a threat with his current level of power. By right, even if he had drawn the attention of Dark Dragon Tribe upon himself, he should not have instigated such an attack. There had to be a reason behind it. The young man with an obviously high status within the tribe was pursuing him alone, and so, an answer formed within Su Ming's mind. I knew it, it's him. The young man answered with a snort. He took a big step forward and raised his right hand as he continued pursuing Su Ming. A big amount of black mist immediately scattered around him and gathered around the spear on the man's back. A sharp cry echoed through the air after the black mist surrounded the spear a few times. Then, as if the spear was guided by the black mist, it floated above the man's head. Su Ming narrowed his eyes. It was a berserker art. The presence of chi coming out from the man also proved just how powerful he was. He was slightly more powerful than Su Ming. Judging by the looks of it, he should have been at the 5th level of the blood solidification realm but had only reached it not too long ago. He should have just had a few more blood veins than Su Ming. Nonetheless, since he had a berserker vessel, everything was different. You can see her after you die. There was more than 7,000 feet between them. Since the two of them had been running at full speed, they were already some distance away from Dark Dragon Tribe. Even so, the man was still the only one giving chase. As the black mist surrounded the long spear, the sense of danger became even stronger. As the man spoke, his killing intent became even more obvious in his eyes. He pointed at Su Ming with his right hand in one swift motion, and immediately, the black spear rushed towards Su Ming with a piercing trill. As it traveled forward, the golden glow on the tip of the long spear flashed as though it could tear through a void. It came towards Su Ming at an unimaginable speed, and within the blink of an eye, it was already within 3,000 feet away from Su Ming. Berserker vessel. Su Ming narrowed his eyes. He recognized the object. All 49 blood veins within Su Ming immediately appeared. The circulation of blood within his body increased in an instant, causing the qi within Su Ming's body to erupt. The act pushed Su Ming's speed and agility to the peak, and at the very moment the long spear was about to touch him, Su Ming ducked. The wind whistled wildly above his head as the long spear missed the top of his head by about 7 inches. It fell on the ground with a loud thud. The force of the strike was by no means weaker than the one from Dark Dragon tribe just moments ago. A normal berserker at the 4th level of the blood solidification realm would have found it hard to avoid the attack, but Su Ming specialized in speed and agility. As soon as he avoided the attack, he did not even spare the long spear on the ground a glance. Instead, a cold glare appeared in his eyes as he ran into the distance. Su Ming did not even think about snatching the long spear from the ground. It was written within the beast skin scrolls that only berserkers at the awakening realm could make berserker vessels acknowledge them as their masters. Those below the awakening realm would not have been able to do it. Yet, it was odd that the man threw out the vessel so easily. It could have been taken away by someone else with ease. There had to be something wrong. It was nearly dark. Before long, the young man reached the location where the long spear was. An icy glare appeared in his eyes as he snorted. There was a light crease between his brows. As the son of the tribe leader in Dark Dragon tribe, Xianxia was probably not the strongest among the younger generation, but he was definitely no common berserker. He had the strength of a 5th-level berserker at the blood solidification realm and had with him a berserker vessel. Killing a person who was only at the 4th level of the blood solidification realm was easy. Yet the person avoided the attack. The act alone made Xianxia wary and alerted him to the cautiousness of the other person. It's a pity. If he had picked up my berserker vessel, he would have died immediately. Xianxia hesitated for a moment, but once he thought of something, he picked up the long spear carefully and gave chase once more. Su Ming ran like the wind in the forest. His speed kept increasing as he ran, but Xianxia kept up with him. The long spear would occasionally whisk past him and prevented Su Ming from widening the distance between them. There was still a few hundred feet between them as Su Ming ran into the forest. However, if Su Ming truly wanted to escape, it would not have been hard with his speed and knowledge of the forest. However, he did not have the desire to widen the distance between them. This was the second time he saw a berserker vessel. The fact that he had experienced its might, his desire to obtain the vessel increased. He wanted the vessel. As he ran, he occasionally looked at the sky. When he saw that the sky had gradually darkened and the moon had appeared, a bright glint twinkled in his eyes. Berserker vessels are all rare items. Hence, he must have another trick up his sleeve for him to throw it out so easily. Now, he's not closing the distance between us. If I were him, I would think about increasing the power of the berserker vessel, but looking at how cautious he is, there must be a price for him to pay if he made that move. But I wonder, just how strong is the vessel's true might? Su Ming made a decision. As Xianxia continued pursuing Su Ming, he began to grow impatient. He did not expect his opponent to be so agile. It was getting dark and he was getting too far away from the tribe. He had made sure not a lot of people knew of his departure from the tribe. If he went back to the tribe late, it would be hard for him to explain himself. He gritted his teeth and grabbed at the air with his right hand. Then for the first time, the long spear surrounded by black mist appeared in his hands. At that moment, Su Ming suddenly spoke a few hundred feet ahead. With how fiercely you're chasing me, I can see that you truly want to kill me. There is no hate between us. Even if you want to kill me, at least give me a reason. Why should I bother with idle chatter? You came within the area of my tribe, and for that, anyone from my tribe could kill you. Even if we did kill you and Dark Mountain tribe wanted to seek revenge for you, it's still your own fault. Xianxia laughed coldly. He held onto the long spear tightly as he continued pursuing Su Ming. Cold waves traveled from the long spear into his arm. Xianxia's gaze darkened. He snorted and raised his right arm along with the spear. Immediately, countless voices roared from within the forest. A great amount of black mist flowed out of the spear and gathered around it, turning the spear into an impressive black dragon. The dragon had numerous claws and its whiskers moved in the air. It looked incredibly ferocious. No matter who you are, you must die today. Xianxia grinned fiercely. His face was pale. Clearly, Calling out the might of the spear had brought upon a great toll to his body. Just as he was about to throw the spear towards Su Ming opened his mouth and spoke. "It's because I saved Bai Ling, right?" Su Ming suddenly said. When Xikong heard the name, he was momentarily stunned. The moment his actions faltered, Su Ming stopped running abruptly and turned around to look at him. He raised his right hand as well and swung it in his direction. A sense of danger he had never felt before arose in Xikong's heart. He narrowed his eyes as his demeanor changed completely. Just as he was about to throw the spear in his hand, he felt his body quivering. It was as if a huge gust of wind blew against him and also a strong blast of light pierced into his eyes. He saw the shadow of the blood-red moon within Su Ming's eyes. The shadow of the blood-red moon became the only thing he saw. He felt a sudden pain in his entire body and coughed out a mouthful of blood. His eyes expressed confusion, bewilderment and bafflement as he fell onto the snow face down. As he fell, the spear that he did not manage to throw gradually turned back into a common object as the black mist scattered. It fell to the side. There was blood coming out from his entire body as it seeped into the snow. There was a faint silvery thread around his body which sank deep into his flesh. It felt like with just a slight tug, his entire body would have been torn apart. He did not die. There was still breath within him. He just became unconscious due to the sudden blast of pain. Su Ming's heart pounded against his chest. He looked at the spear with lingering fear. When the true might of the spear had been brought out by the before him, Su Ming had felt death. When you are fighting against someone, do not let your focus waver. Do not hesitate. If it is possible to kill your enemy with one strike within the shortest amount of time, do not wait till the last moment to do so. Su Ming mumbled as he remembered the words in his head. He had a berserker vessel. It was by pure luck that I won this battle. Su Ming squatted down and looked at the unconscious Xikong. After hesitating briefly, Su Ming chose to bandage his wounds. He did not want Xikong to die or cause trouble to Dark Mountain tribe. He deduced that Xikong would wake up soon. Soon, a crazed look settled in his eyes as he looked at the long black spear lying by his side. He looked at it carefully and gradually found some clues regarding the spear. On many parts of the spear were tiny thorns that he would have missed if he had not observed the spear carefully. After looking at it for a long time, Su Ming found and held onto the only small part of the spear that was without thorns carefully. He left the area quickly. Chapter 42. Returning Debts. Before long, Su Ming quickly returned to the spot. He stood beside the unconscious Xikong and paced around him for a while. He lifted his head and looked at the sky as well as the moon. The moonlight looked gentle and soft as it shone on the land. It's not appropriate for me to take such a precious berserker vessel away just like that. I don't have a proper explanation and it can be taken back by Dark Dragon tribe anytime. Besides, I might even be accused of snatching away treasure, should I kill him or not. Su Ming fell into silence for a moment. He looked at Xikong and arrived at a decision. He brought out a few herbs from his bosom and crushed it until they became liquid. Then he rubbed the liquid on Xikong's lips. After that, he squatted down beside Xikong and patted Xikong's head rhythmically with his left hand. It seemed like he wanted to wake him up by slapping him. Soon after, Xikong's entire body twitched and he opened his eyes abruptly. When he did so, his eyes were still blurry. Even so, he saw Su Ming's smiling face within his faded field of vision. Xikong was momentarily stunned. Then he widened his eyes. There was still bewilderment and bafflement lingering in his eyes. His mind was blank. He felt like he saw something before he fainted, but at the same time, it could have all just been in his mind. In his fuzzy state, he was beginning to feel confused. Just as he was about to move, Su Ming swung the black spear in his right hand and pointed the tip of the spear 3 inches away from Xikong's throat. If Su Ming pushed forward just a little, Xikong's throat would have been pierced and he would have died on the spot. Don't move. In Xikong's eyes, the golden glow on the tip of the spear looked like a ray of light that was about to take his life. It made him tremble slightly. He stared at Su Ming with fear and shock in his eyes. What do you want to do? I am the son of Dark Dragon tribe's tribe leader. If you kill me, the entire Dark Dragon tribe will not let you escape. I know that you're from Dark Mountain tribe. If you kill me, Dark Mountain Tribe won't protect you either. He still could not fathom how he had lost. He just remembered that the person before him swung his hand and then he fainted in great pain. The more he failed to make sense of it, the more mysterious the smiling teenager before him became. That feeling turned into apprehension, and with the spear pointing at his throat, he retreated instinctively in fear. However, just as he was about to move backwards, he tasted something bitter on his tongue. He licked his lips on reflex and the bitter taste grew stronger. It made his face turn completely pale. He had a bad hunch about it and there was fear on his face. He raised his hands and wiped it across his mouth. There was brown liquid on his hand. What did you feed me? It's nothing. It's just some normal herbs. They're just a bit poisonous, Su Ming said jokingly. His smile was enigmatic. Xikong's eyes were filled with despair when he heard those words. His entire body trembled as he felt the bitter taste grow stronger in his mouth. He even felt his tongue tingling. You wouldn't dare kill me. Xikong lifted his head and glared at Su Ming. You can believe what you want. If you don't believe me, there's nothing else I can do to convince you. But I do have the antidote. So, you're the son of the tribe leader from Dark Dragon Tribe. What's your name? Su Ming was feeling a bit guilty. Nonetheless, he was the type of person who schooled his face to make sure no one could see through him, the guiltier he felt. He smiled as he spoke to Xikong. My name is Xikong. You can't kill me or else it'll only bring trouble to your tribe. Xikong's eyes were fierce but he was feeling exceptionally nervous. Not only did he feel his tongue tingling, even his chest was throbbing in pain. This added to the fact that he could not gauge anything from Su Ming's expression. Xikong felt even more fearful. Hey Xikong, why don't we talk about something? Su Ming raised his head and looked at the moon as he spoke slowly. Xikong's face was pale. He could no longer hide the growing fear in his eyes. He immediately nodded his head. I like this stupid spear of yours. How about you sell it to me? I'll buy it for 5,000 stone coins. Su Ming blinked expectantly as he looked at Xikong. Xikong faltered for a moment as he looked at the spear in Su Ming's right hand and the tip pointing against his throat. How could he not have agreed to it? The bitter taste in his mouth and his pursuit for Su Ming's life also forced him to think that Su Ming had definitely fed him some sort of poisonous herb. He wanted to bet that the person before his eyes did not dare to kill him. After all, he was of high status. If he died, both tribes would definitely go to war. He was even willing to bet that even if the person before him snatched away the long spear, he still had countless ways to obtain that piece of treasure back with his dad's help. However, the bitterness in his mouth prevented him from taking the risk. He was afraid. What if? It was especially so since his head was also hurting because Su Ming had been hitting him pretty harshly earlier. Xikong only hesitated for a brief moment before nodding his head rapidly. Su Ming smiled happily. He tore a big piece of fabric from Xikong's shirt. His action made Xikong's heart thump loudly against his chest. More blood drained from his already pale face. Since this is a trade, we need proof of our deal. Let's write this down. Xikong lack money. Hence, I am selling this spear for 5,000 stone coins. Su Ming hesitated suddenly as he spoke, then he shook his head. No can do. Write it this way. Xikong swear on my status as the son of the tribe leader of Dark Dragon Tribe. Due to an emergency, I borrowed 5,000 stone coins from Dark Mountain Tribe and I have pawned off this berserker vessel for a period of 10 years. I promise I will return 10,000 stone coins after 10 years to obtain this spear back. During this period of time, I cannot exchange the spear back. If I break my promise, let the statue of the god of berserkers punish me. As Su Ming finished speaking, he looked at Xikong. A miserable look settled on Xikong's face after he finished listening to Su Ming's words, especially the last few lines. As he hesitated, he saw Su Ming produce an herb he had never seen before from his bosom. Then he heard Su Ming's voice next to his ear. This is the antidote. Xikong stared at the herb and gritted his teeth. He brought his hand to his mouth and bit down on his finger before writing on the piece of sackcloth with his blood. Very soon, the entire phrase was written on the cloth. Su Ming snatched the sackcloth away from and scrutinized it. Excitement appeared in his eyes. He blew at it carefully until the blood dried up before folding it. He then placed it in his bosom and patted it a few times. He smiled as he looked at Si Kong. Si Kong, remember this, you have to return your debts. I'm only going to wait for you for 10 years. Su Ming's eyes were bright with cunning. He placed the herb on the ground and ran into the distance, leaving Si Kong sitting bitterly on the snow. He picked up the herb quickly. After a brief moment of hesitation, he was still too afraid to eat it. Instead, he got up quickly and ran back to his tribe. After he left, a person's vague shadow suddenly appeared out of nowhere on the quiet snow plain. It was an old woman with a dark expression on her face. There was a huge staff made of bone in her hands. Perched on top of the staff was a human skull which emitted an eerie glow. Is that the baby from all those years ago? What berserker art was that? Not even I can tell, I've never seen it before. The old woman looked towards the direction where Su Ming left. Her eyes glowed as if she was deep in thought. After a long while, she turned and walked towards Dark Dragon Tribe, gradually disappearing. As Su Ming ran in the forest, he occasionally looked at the spear in his hand and giggled foolishly. There was fondness in his eyes. Even Xiao Hong, who was sitting on his shoulders, regarded the spear curiously as it screeched continuously. It could feel a great power hidden within the spear. It's your fault for trying to stop me from seeing Bai Ling. Judging by his behavior, he must like Bai Ling. If that's the case, then quite a lot of people must know that I saved Bai Ling. Su Ming faltered in his footsteps as he sank into his thoughts. I wonder how much Bai Ling told them. If she told them everything, the cave I used to quench herbs is no longer safe. Su Ming suddenly felt annoyed. He frowned and thought about it for a long time. He traveled through the forest silently into the night. Xiao Hong blinked. As it watched Su Ming seemingly troubled by something, a thought appeared in its head. Realization crossed its face and it grinned. It jumped down from Su Ming's shoulder and with a few leaps, disappeared into the forest. Remember, don't go back to Black Flame Mountain. Don't go back to the fire cave either. Su Ming looked at it and quickly shouted. The forest was Xiao Hong's home. Su Ming was not worried that it would run into danger. He was also not far away from the tribe already. As Su Ming traveled back, he forced himself not to think about the things that troubled him. Instead, he forced himself to be cheerful as he ran back towards the tribe. When midnight came and the moon in the sky was at its brightest, Su Ming saw some of the tribe's bonfire light from where he stood. He was about to walk out of the forest when he heard rustling sounds coming from behind him. Su Ming turned and he saw Xiao Hong running towards him with excitement and pride on its face. There was a big bundle of black fur in its hands. Once it caught up to Su Ming, it immediately stuffed the bundle of fur into Su Ming's hands. Su Ming at that moment just looked awkward. Then Xiao Hong took a few steps back and pointed at the bundle, then at its own groin. It made a few odd motions as if it was teaching Su Ming how to use the fur. It patted its chest as it proudly screeched a few times. It seemed like Xiao Hong was telling Su Ming about the effects of the thing. Su Ming looked at Xiao Hong and began laughing loudly. When Xiao Hong saw that Su Ming was no longer frowning, it grinned thinking that it had made the right guess and Su Ming was indeed bothered by this. Xiao Hong. Su Ming squatted down and motioned towards Xiao Hong. The little monkey immediately ran towards him. Su Ming looked at Xiao Hong with a gentle gaze in his eyes. He patted its fur softly as he felt his heart warming up due to the little monkey's actions. When I'm not around, remember not to go back to Black Flame Mountain. Don't go back to the fire cave either. Go somewhere else. Once I come back, I'll look for you. Also, don't skip those pills I gave you just because you think it tastes bad. You have to eat one every day. Eat them along with the herbs just like how I taught you. Remember that. Su Ming spoke softly as he smiled. He glanced at Xiao Hong, then walked back to the tribe. Chapter 43, Teachings. On the third day of Su Ming's return to the tribe, a group of people led by the elder gathered at the center of the settlement. It was the same place they used for the berserker's awakening ceremony. The elder still wore clothes made of sackcloth and his white hair was still decorated by a huge number of tiny braids. He seemed to be in high spirits as he looked at Bai Ling, Lei Chen, Su Ming and another girl who was of the same age as Su Ming. The girl's name was Wu Le. She was one of the people who were found to possess a berserker body during the awakening. A few months had passed since then and she had now arrived at the peak of the second level of the blood solidification realm. It seemed that it was just a matter of time before she would manifest the 11th blood vein and become a berserker at the third level of the blood solidification realm. There were two people standing beside the elder. One of them was the head of the guards, who also happened to be Bei Ling's father. His strong body made him look like an iron tower, but there was a gentleness within his piercing gaze. The other person was the cold and stoic chief of the hunters, Xianxia. He looked even more vicious while wearing beast skin. He was never the talkative sort, but most of the berserkers in the tribe respected him. Besides, his hunting team was given the important task of protecting the tribe and providing food, so his status was incredibly high within the tribe. Our tribe is small and we cannot compare with Windstream tribe. That is why we have to offer tributes to them once every few years to show our acknowledgement of them as our leader. I usually don't go, but this year, I must. Besides us, Dark Dragon tribe, Black Mountain tribe and the other small tribes located further ahead will all gather at Windstream tribe. As such, this trip will also be a test for all of you. It is your task to stand out among your peers and not embarrass our tribe. It is up to all of you to do this. We only chose you lot to come with us because you are all the future leaders of Dark Mountain tribe. This trip will serve as an experience that will help you in the future. Among all of you, Bei Ling has come with us to Windstream tribe twice. He knows some of the details of the trip. You can ask him if you want, the elder spoke slowly. His voice echoed hoarsely in the air around them. Bei Ling consented to the elder's request in a low voice. His gaze fell upon Lei Chen, then on the girl called Wula and finally on Su Ming, who was standing by the side. He frowned. Elder, will this trip be like the previous two times? Will there be a test? Bei Ling hesitated for a moment as he asked the elder respectfully. When the elder nodded, a sharp glint appeared in Bei Ling's eyes and he pointed at Su Ming. Elder, I believe Su Ming shouldn't join us. He's not a berserker. Even if he joins us, he won't be of any use or of any help to us. We should leave his spot for another tribe member. The moment Bei Ling spoke, Lei Chen's eyes were immediately filled with displeasure. He took a few steps forward and yelled at Bei Ling. He can't go just because he's not a berserker. Bei Ling, what's the meaning of this? The girl called Wula retained her composure as she looked at Su Ming, who remained silent. There was disdain in her eyes, but she did not join the argument. Elder, we can only bring 4 from the younger generation within the tribe every time we join the worship. For the previous tests, I was the only one from Dark Mountain tribe who was listed as one of the top 50 younger berserkers. Lei Chen's joining us this year, so perhaps he can also get a place. Even Wula, despite not having reached a high level in her training yet, has activated 9 blows from the statue of the god of berserkers during her awakening. Perhaps she can get into the top 100. Such a result is much better than the previous years. If there's one more person who can get into the top 100, isn't that even better? Su Ming is just wasting space, Bei Ling spoke calmly, refusing to even look at Lei Chen, who was glaring at him in anger. Su Ming will not join the test. I'm bringing him along for another purpose, the elder spoke slowly. Bei Ling wanted to continue speaking, but the head of the guards, who was then standing behind the elder, glared at him sternly. It made Bei Ling swallow whatever words he was about to say. Bei Ling had always been afraid of his father, ever since he was young. All right, we don't have much time. Let's go. The elder raised his right hand and motioned at the clear sky. Thunder roared instantly and spread to all corners of the earth. The white clouds in the sky started turning dark. At the same time, a berserker mark formed by numerous blood veins appeared clearly on the elder's face. It was a python. Once the berserker mark appeared, the dark clouds in the sky fluctuated as if they were moved by a pair of invisible hands. They gathered together in the blink of an eye and turned abruptly into a gigantic and ferocious black python that was about 100 feet long. The sight shocked both Lei Chen and Wula. They stood there, stunned. As for Bei Ling, he was barely able to maintain his calm. He was forcing himself to remain cool. Su Ming stood by the side and looked at the gigantic black python. He took a deep breath and a longing look appeared in his eyes. The head of the guards, who was standing behind the elder, looked at the gigantic python with a hint of respect. A fanatic look also briefly flashed across Shan Hen's eyes as he looked at the giant python. Although the python was transfigured from clouds, the scales on its body could be seen clearly. Its body's strong presence came crashing on them. The python swung its head. Its red eyes were filled with a vicious glare, but the glare gradually disappeared and was replaced by a gentle look. It descended from the skies and lowered its head as it laid beside the elder submissively. The elder lifted his feet and climbed up the python. He stood on its head. Come. Bei Ling was the first to take a leap and step on the giant python's back. Once he sat down cross-legged, Lei Chen and Wu Le also jumped onto the python. Su Ming hesitated for a moment before he also leapt onto its back. Just as he was about to take a few steps back and sit beside Lei Chen, the elder's voice traveled into his ears. Su Ming, come to my side. There was a severe tone in the elder's voice, which made Su Ming walk anxiously towards the elder. The moment he sat down, he saw the elder glaring at him. Elder, I was wrong, I did something really terrible, Su Ming immediately whispered. The elder ignored him. He waited instead for the head of the guards and Shan Hen to get onto the dark python. Then, he waved his right hand and the dark python immediately roared at the sky and flew into the clouds. The tribe beneath them rapidly shrank before their eyes until it was just a small dot as the dark python continued climbing up into the sky. The winds blew past furiously like roaring thunder. It turned Su Ming's face pale. It was the same for Lei Chen and the others. However, the head of the guards and the chief of the hunters stood at the middle and on the tail of the python respectively, protecting them. As for Su Ming, his breathing became rapid under the assault of the fierce wind, but soon after, a gentle power surrounded him. It was the might from the elder. It helped Su Ming bear through the discomfort of his first time in the sky. So, now you know you did wrong. Pray tell, what did you do wrong? It was that Lasu from Dark Dragon tribe who borrowed 5,000 stone coins from you and pawned off his spear, wasn't it? There may have been winds bellowing around them, but the elder's voice still made its way into Su Ming's ears clearly. With the might of the elder's chi around them, no one else on the dark python could hear them besides themselves. Su Ming felt really awkward. When he returned to the tribe, he had eagerly gone to the elder to tell him about his exploits. Yet when the elder heard of his tale, his mood darkened and he scolded Su Ming. He even took the long spear away. This caused Su Ming to continuously sigh gloomily in his own house, unable to understand where he went wrong. Elder, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have taken Si Kong's berserker vessel, I shouldn't have been greedy, Su Ming said carefully as he continued observing the elder's mood anxiously. I shouldn't have made him write the blood vow either. Ah, elder, I'm really sorry. Su Ming looked at the elder with wide eyes. Oh, are these your only mistakes? Is there nothing else? Think again. Think carefully about where you did wrong, the elder spoke slowly as he gave Su Ming a look. Su Ming was stunned and unconsciously scratched his head. He thought about the elder's words carefully. There seemed to be an underlying meaning to it. Besides the wrongs he listed, did he commit any other mistakes? Su Ming frowned and thought carefully. Suddenly, a cold glint appeared briefly in his eyes and he lifted his head swiftly. Elder, I understand. I should have killed him and gotten rid of his body before taking his berserker vessel. When he heard Su Ming's words, the elder's pupils very clearly shrank and he stared at Su Ming in surprise. It did not appear like he was looking at the youth before him, but he was looking and thinking about something that Su Ming did not seem to understand. Oh, why do you think you made a mistake there? Why should you have killed him? The elder looked at Su Ming and asked gently. Because he was going to kill me. Elder, you didn't know about this, but he really wanted to kill me. If I wasn't careful, you wouldn't be seeing me anymore. But I couldn't bring myself to do it. I thought if I really killed him, I would bring about serious trouble to the tribe, Su Ming explained softly after a moment of hesitation. As he recalled what happened a few days ago, fear still lingered in his heart. You're right, Su Ming, you must remember this. When you meet someone who wants to kill you, you must get rid of the danger. The elder closed his eyes. After a long while, he opened them slowly and looked at Su Ming kindly. But that is not the mistake I'm talking about. Think, what else did you not consider? Killing people is easy, but how can you guarantee your own safety after you have killed someone? If you are in danger, how do you find a way to survive in hopeless situation? The elder looked at Su Ming and asked softly. Su Ming scratched his head. He displayed exceptional abilities and judgments, but in the end, he was still a teenager. His head was still slightly muddled by the elder's words, but he was even more bewildered. Think carefully. Don't give me an answer just yet. Once you have understood it, you can tell me. You must learn how to think and reflect on your actions. The elder closed his eyes. These sort of things happened multiple times when Su Ming was growing up. The elder would often do this. The elder's teachings played a critical role in Su Ming's growth. Su Ming sank into deep thought as he recalled everything that happened that day. From the moment he was ambushed by the long spear to Xikong's pursuit, right up till the end. Time passed by slowly. After a while, an hour passed by. When they were still less than halfway from Windstream Tribe, a strong wind blew from afar, causing the dark python to shake all of a sudden. The people on top of the python also jerked along with its movements. As Su Ming's body jolted due to the sudden movement, a thought flashed in his head like lightning. Elder, I know now, as Su Ming mumbled, a sheen of cold sweat formed on his back. Chapter 44. Mo sang. Oh, what is it that you have now understood? The elder opened his eyes and looked at Su Ming. I cannot kill Xikong. Even if he was the tribe leader's son, he would not have been able to activate the long spear that was defending the tribe. More importantly, he would not have been able to hide the fact that he came out and killed me on his own from the entire Dark Mountain tribe. The more Su Ming spoke, the more shocked and fearful he became. His body was already drenched in cold sweat. It may have seemed like he came out to chase me on his own, but in reality, Su Ming's pupils shrank in fear. But in reality, the elder and tribe leader of Dark Dragon Tribe probably knew about him coming out to kill me. But they did not stop him. Instead, they let it happen. Also, they were probably right behind him all along, watching the fight between Xikong and me. Su Ming took a sharp breath. He was not afraid of all that. He was only afraid of someone witnessing him using the power of the moon. The more he analyzed the situation, the more terrified he became. The whole picture was slowly revealing itself right before his eyes. Shortly after, however, Su Ming frowned. His eyes were clouded with bewilderment. I suppose you don't understand why the elder of Dark Dragon Tribe or the tribe leader allowed you to take the spear so easily, even though they were following the two of you. The elder spoke calmly and revealed Su Ming's biggest doubt at that moment. Su Ming did not speak, but he continued thinking. After a while, he looked at the vast world beyond them far away and spoke slowly. It could not have been the tribe leader following Xikong and me. If it had been him, he would not have continued hiding when he saw Xikong being wounded. I believe the one who followed us was the elder of Dark Dragon Tribe. But I don't understand, why did the elder of Dark Dragon Tribe allow me to take away the Berserker vessel? That's right, the one following you was the elder of Dark Dragon Tribe, Lei Su. The elder's eyes glowed brightly with praise. Your analysis is correct. If it had been the tribe leader of Dark Dragon Tribe, he would not have stood by as you bullied his son. As for your question, I can give you the answer. This may have seemed like a pursuit after your life, but in reality, Dark Dragon Tribe would not have killed you. After all, you saved Bai Ling. If they killed you after you did them a favor, it would have incited the wrath of Dark Mountain Tribe. They would not do that, especially since we're at such a critical moment right now. The elder's eyes shone with wisdom as he helped Su Ming continue with his analysis. Were they trying to scare me? Su Ming's eyes were filled with understanding, but in a matter of moments, worry replaced it. Ha ha, they wanted to scare people like you who have eyes on a girl from their tribe. Once you've been scared off, you won't approach Dark Dragon Tribe anymore because you're afraid. Xikong did not know about this. His killing intent was real. Lei Su, the elder from Dark Dragon Tribe, must have used his affection towards Bai Ling to incite his anger. If you were not a match for him, you would have been injured at most. Then she would act in secret, making it seem as if you escaped from death. You're still too young. You can't see the entire picture. If it was me, I would not have ran. I would have sauntered into their tribe and searched for the girl I liked right in front of their faces. You are her savior and also my child. How could they dare harm you? The elder smiled and spoke as he patted Su Ming's head. Su Ming was stunned. His face was filled with remorse. This might have been a test from Dark Dragon tribe for you. After all, the lass you like is Lei Su's granddaughter. The elder was still smiling as he looked at Su Ming. Elder, that elder from Dark Dragon tribe is too sly. Su Ming's face was bitter. When the elder explained everything to him, he finally understood what happened. Don't feel so disheartened. Besides not understanding their motive, you did pretty well. Lei Su must not have expected this. Not only were you not battered by Xikong's pursuit, you also managed to win against him. As for why Lei Su allowed you to take that berserker vessel away, the elder's eyes twinkled briefly with understanding. Since you weren't scared off, she must have let you take it on purpose. Letting you take the spear was for the purpose of telling me that they've repaid their debt to you for saving Bai Ling. Dark Dragon tribe is slightly different from us, especially Lei Su. She is not that familiar with berserker arts, but she is good at creating berserker vessels. They are not true berserker vessels but counterfeits. Take for example, that spear of yours. It's a counterfeit berserker vessel. It was created based on one of the 3 great berserker vessels in the old Dark Mountain tribe, the spear, blood scales. The elder raised his right hand and slapped Su Ming's arm. Immediately, he felt a chill traveling into his arm. Instantly, a black line appeared slowly on his right arm. I have already groomed the spear for you and made some changes. I've changed the Dark Dragon into a black eagle. It can now fuse into your body. And if you want to, you can summon it by thinking about it. The elder raised his right hand and smiled as he spoke. Su Ming looked at the black line on his right arm and was about to speak after a moment of hesitation. I know what you want to say. Let me ask you, when you took the berserker vessel that Dark Dragon tribe gave you as payment for saving Bai Ling, what were you thinking? Are you going to return the spear in exchange for a chance to see that lass again, or are you going to keep it and not see the lass ever again? The elder grinned as he asked. Su Ming fell into silence for a moment. Then he laughed suddenly. Xikong pawned off this spear for 5,000 coins. Obviously, I can't return it. As for Bai Ling, I am her savior. Su Ming winked. The elder laughed out loudly and patted Su Ming's head. His eyes were filled with praise. Bai Ling sat cross-legged on the middle section of the dark python. He was facing the elders and Su Ming's backs. He did not know what they were talking about, but as he saw the elder grinning and Su Ming smiling, he lowered his head. His eyes flared with jealousy. Su Ming, if you were a berserker, I wouldn't have minded. But when you went through your first awakening, you were proven to not possess a berserker body. Why does Ah Shin like a normal person like you? More importantly, why is the elder so good towards you? Is it because you were adopted by the elder? You are not even related by blood. I am the hope of the tribe, but the elder has never smiled at me before. Even my father is like this. He always says you have the potential to become the head of the guards. Su Ming, if you weren't here, Xianxia, my father and even the elder would not treat me the way they are treating me now. Su Ming, you thought I was cold towards you because of Xianxia and you wanted to explain to me. You don't realize that I don't want to hear your explanations. You're just a stray child. You don't even belong to Dark Mountain tribe. You don't even look like a member of the Berserker tribe. What right do you have to try and explain your situation to me? Why should I even waste my time listening to your explanations? Bai Ling's breathing quickened with rage. It took a long while before recovering. When he lifted his head again, he was just like before, cold and aloof. Bai Ling's father, the head of the guards of Dark Mountain tribe, who was standing not too far away from Bai Ling, was frowning. He glanced at Bai Ling, then at Su Ming's back and sighed quietly. A strange glow appeared briefly in Shan Hen's eyes. He was standing at the tail of the python right beside Lei Chen. No one knew what he was thinking about. As someone who had always maintained a stoic personality in the tribe, very few could actually see into his thoughts. Time began to pass by quickly as they traveled from Dark Mountain tribe to Windstream tribe. If Su Ming had chosen to run on foot, he would have taken almost 2 days to travel from Dark Mountain tribe to Windstream tribe. On the Elder's Python, they managed to see the outline of an extremely big tribe far in the distance in less than 2 hours. Right in the middle of the tribe was a giant city made of mudstone. The city did not seem big from the sky, but as the Python descended, its entire form was revealed clearly before Su Ming's eyes. The majestic city was filled with many houses made of mudstone. It did not look messy and was very tidy. It could not compare with the ruins of the Fire Berserker tribe Su Ming saw, but it was still much stronger than Dark Mountain tribe, where he was staying. That moat alone was already something that Dark Mountain tribe could not own. The city walls were several feet tall. If a person stood on the ground, he would have needed to lift up his head to see it. Even though Su Ming was in midair, his heart trembled as he looked at the walls of the city. He was not the only one affected. Lei Chen, who was also leaning over the python and looking downwards, was filled with admiration as well as awe. Wu Le was also the same. She looked at the giant city made of mudstone with a dumbfounded expression. She had never seen anything like it before. Only Bei Ling remained calm. Thousands of people could stay within the big city and there would still be space left. In the middle of the city was a humongous pentagon-shaped altar. It was completely black and dozens of feet tall. There was a vague picture of a bird carved on it. It gave off an ancient feeling and was the most striking feature in the city. The Mudstone City alone could not show the might of Windstream tribe as the ruler of the region and conqueror of the area, capable of receiving tributes from the numerous small tribes around them. It was also the only tribe qualified to communicate with celestial beings. To top it off, there were also 6 other tribes like Dark Mountain tribe around the Mudstone City. The 6 tribes were originally only affiliated to Windstream tribe. At that point, they had already become a part of Windstream tribe. Su Ming stared at the gigantic tribe on the ground with a dumbfounded expression. The might of Windstream tribe had far surpassed his imaginations. A tribe like this was as powerful as the gods to Su Ming. The tribe could destroy any enemy who came their way. As the python approached the area, Su Ming saw many of the tribe members from Windstream tribe lifting their heads as if they were looking at them. Su Ming was not sure whether it was just in his imagination, but among the unfamiliar faces, he saw a sort of arrogance in their demeanor. "This is Windstream tribe." The elder's voice echoed from above the python. The affiliated tribe from Dark Mountain tribe in the past has now become the most powerful in the area. Elder, was Dark Mountain tribe as powerful as Windstream tribe in the past? Wu Le asked. The elder did not speak, but there was a dim look in his eyes. At that moment, a gentle laughter traveled from within Windstream tribe. Mo sang, "Thank you for coming to Windstream tribe." Chapter 45. So, you are Su Ming. At the center of the pentagonal altar was a middle-aged man wearing a purple robe. He lifted his head as he looked at them with a smile on his face. There was some distance between Su Ming and the middle-aged man. Yet for some unknown reason, the moment Su Ming heard his voice and looked at him, he saw the image of the man appearing before his eyes as if he was looking at him at close proximity. The strange sight stunned Su Ming. At the same time, as the man's laughter traveled to his ears, the chi within his body began circulating as though he lost control of it. It felt like just one glance from the man would make the blood in his entire body burst forth and he would die instantly. Su Ming was not the only one who felt that way. Lei Chen, Wu Le, and even Bei Ling felt the same way. Lei Chen shuddered as his eyes were filled with disbelief. Wu Le too was trembling. It was as though the middle-aged man she could clearly see before her eyes had some sort of incredible strength that made her want to bow down and worship him. Even Bei Ling's father, the head of the guards of Dark Mountain tribe, was trembling slightly. Slowly, he lowered his head before the man who was walking towards them in midair from the altar below. Besides the head of the guards, Shan Hen, the chief of the hunters, was breathing rapidly. A hint of fanaticism and anticipation materialized in his eyes. This was an incredibly rare look for him. He was usually stoic and reserved. Awakening realm, Su Ming cried out in his heart. At that moment, these 2 words formed in his head. Those who arrive at the awakening realm can walk in the skies. They can show their berserker mark to the skies and with their mouths, activate their berserker blood. With their chi, they can break through the sky. These were the words written in the beast skin scroll describing the awakening realm. Su Ming stared at the man in purple walking towards them on air, with an astounded expression. He seemed to be in his 40s and was on the leaner side of the spectrum. However, he looked extremely handsome. There were not a lot of signs showing that he was a member of the Berserker tribe. The only sign that hinted it was a pair of bone earrings he wore. Su Ming had never seen such a beautiful material as the one his purple robe was made from. Coarse linen and sackcloth could in no way have compared to that, much less beast skin and hides. As he walked towards them, Windstream Tribe started twisting behind him. It appeared that for a moment, everything disappeared from the world and all that was left was him. What was more, the wind stopped howling and the clouds also froze in the sky. The middle-aged man's long hair flowed behind his back. He smiled as he approached them slowly. His smile was like the spring breeze, causing the chi and blood within Su Ming as well as the rest of them to gradually calm down. Yet as the middle-aged man came closer still, they were overwhelmed by a feeling of suffocation. It was like they were too afraid to take a deep breath. His eyes seemed to contain the sky. When other people looked into them, their minds went blank. It was as if all their secrets would be exposed before him, as though they were standing naked right in front him. The python also appeared to be frozen in midair at that moment. It did not move an inch as though it felt the man's terrifying aura. The elder slowly stood up straight. The expression within his eyes was unreadable when the man appeared. It was carefully hidden. "Greetings, Windstream Berserker Lord." The elder's face was old and wizened as he stood up and bowed before the middle-aged man. Mo sang, "There's no need for this between us." The man's voice was gentle but he did not stop the elder from bowing. When the elder was done, he swung his right hand through the air like he was going to help the elder up using his chi. Yet instead of standing, the elder's body trembled and he bowed once more under the pressure of the force. After that, the force on the elder's body collapsed. As it dissipated, the elder stood up straight. The man in purple looked at the elder deeply. He smiled and shook his head as he pointed at the elder. "Your temper is still the same as when you were young. So many years have passed, why did you decide to come see me now?" "I have thought about your request all those years ago and I have arrived at a decision." The elder looked like he always did as he spoke slowly. When the man in purple heard his words, his demeanor changed. He was sharp with concentration. Su Ming and the rest had already stood up and they were standing at the side respectfully. Su Ming was standing the closest to the elder and he could somewhat feel how the elder felt as he looked at his former friend. He could also understand why the elder refused to come to Windstream. As he looked at the elder's old and wizened face, he glanced at the man in purple nervously as his heart pounded against his chest. Su Ming recalled what the elder told him some time ago. The elder from Windstream Tribe was not my match before he was 20. When he was 34, he could only barely keep up with me. At that time, my name was known in all the tribes around the region. Su Ming felt his heart twisting. Just as he was about to avert his gaze, the man in purple smiled and looked at him. With just a glance, there was loud roar in Su Ming's head. He could clearly tell that the man had seen through the disguise the elder gave him. Just as Su Ming's body began trembling and was on the verge of breaking down, the man turned away and looked towards Bei Ling, Lei Chen, Wula, the chief of the hunters, Xianxia and Dark Mountain Tribe's head of the guards. "Greetings, Windstream Berserker Lord." Xianxia was the first to bow. His actions were quickly followed by the others. Lei Chen's heart pounded against his chest. He was so nervous his face had become pale. It was the same for Wula. Even Bei Ling was no longer aloof, he was respectful. "I remember you. You're Bei Ling, right?" The man pointed at Bei Ling. Bei Ling was momentarily stunned. Then his eyes were filled with joy as he quickly spoke with a trembling voice. Berserker Lord, I am Bei Ling." The man in purple smiled as he nodded. He looked at the elder and was just about to speak when his demeanor changed and he looked into the distance. The elder still stood silently by the side. However, he also seemed to have noticed something and looked towards the same direction. There seemed to be a typhoon roaring in the distance. A gigantic black lion-like creature descended quickly upon them. As the black line approached them, it became apparent that it was actually a massive dragon. It was about hundreds of feet long. The dragon was hundreds of feet and it looked vicious. Black mist surrounded it as it moved forward. There were 6 people standing on it. As Su Ming looked at the approaching dragon, he saw a white figure standing among the 6 people. He smiled. The person who stood in front was an old woman with silver hair. She wore a black robe. Although she looked slightly wizened, it was still obvious that she was incredibly beautiful when she was young. Nonetheless, her face was so cold people felt like they were freezing just by looking at her. Su Ming could tell the elder's gaze had changed when he looked at the old woman from Dark Dragon tribe. Behind the old woman stood a giant, built like an iron tower. The man was incredibly tall. His face was also cold and the presence of his chi was so strong he seemed as though he slightly surpassed Xianxia and the head of the guards. Standing by the old woman's side was a girl in white. The girl's eyes, as beautiful as they were, held a hint of sorrow that did not seem to disperse. Yet when she saw Su Ming, her sorrow immediately disappeared. It was replaced by shock and joy. She even winked at Su Ming. There was another familiar face among the other three people left. It was Si Kong. He stood on the dragon's back as he glared at Su Ming. There was hatred in his eyes. The other people were a young boy and a girl about Su Ming's age. From the looks of it, they were siblings. They were both silent. The girl was larger. She looked busty but she had a beautiful appearance. Once the dragon approached them, the old man and the other people on the dragon bowed towards the man in purple. Their faces were all respectful. Even the dragon underneath them trembled. It seemed terrified of the man. The man in purple was still smiling. He nodded to acknowledge Dark Dragon tribe's homage. A person then came towards them at a blinding speed from Windstream tribe. There was purple mist surrounding his feet. As he appeared in midair, he bowed towards the man in purple. The person was an old man wearing a white robe. He was Shi Hai, who took away Su Ming's pill the other day. Shi Hai, treat our guests well. Once the man in purple finished speaking and Shi Hai expressed his compliance, he looked at the elder of Dark Mountain tribe, Mo Sang. Mo Sang, there is a tribe that offered me some Morris Alba cloud leaves as tribute. I know that you were fond of this a long time ago. I was waiting for you to come so that I could enjoy it with you. The elder nodded his head and turned around to talk with the head of the guards. After that, he took a few steps forward and to Su Ming's surprise, the elder also walked in midair towards the man in purple. Then they flew downwards to the city made of mudstone. As he watched the man in purple, a faint look of yearning appeared in Su Ming's eyes. Awakening realm, I wonder if I can also become so powerful. As Su Ming was looking forward to it quietly in his head, Shi Hai peered at them with a smile on his face. Besides these young ones, the rest of us are already well acquainted with each other. You are early. The rest of the tribes have yet to arrive. Allow me to guide you into Windstream City. Shi Hai still had other matters on his mind. He quenched those thoughts as he smiled and spoke politely. He guided the people's descent into the city made of mudstone. During that time, Lei Chen moved to stand beside Su Ming. He seemed to remember what happened at the square when he saw Bai Ling and felt slightly guilty about it. He thought that if he stood beside Su Ming, he could perhaps push all the blame on him. Su Ming would occasionally look at Bai Ling. There was also a smile on Bai Ling's face and she would meet his gaze sometimes. When their gazes met, Su Ming's heartbeat quickened. Not long after, the people from both tribes went into Windstream City and landed on a large square. The dragon's body scattered and transfigured into a large amount of black mist, quickly fusing into the body of the old woman from Dark Dragon tribe. As for the python, it transfigured into white clouds and disappeared into the sky. There were already tribe members from Windstream tribe waiting on the big square. Under Shi Hai's orders, some people came forward to guide them courteously towards their lodgings during their stay at the city. However, the politeness was only for show. Underneath all that politeness was still arrogance. Su Ming and the rest were about to follow after Shan Hen and the head of the guards to their lodgings, when a voice traveled forth from Dark Dragon tribe. So, you are Su Ming. Su Ming stopped. When he turned around, he saw the old woman from Dark Dragon tribe looking at him darkly. Chapter 46. This year, I am 16 years old. Su Ming was feeling nervous. He was filled with anxiety not just because the person talking to him was the elder of Dark Dragon tribe but also because she was Bai Ling's grandmother. Some of it was also due to the theories and analysis the elder told him on their way to Windstream tribe. I am Su Ming. Greetings, elder of Dark Dragon tribe. Su Ming took a deep breath and bowed before the old woman reverentially. The old woman's face was dark as she stared at Su Ming. No one knew what she was thinking. Still, The people around them became quiet because of this. Their guides from Wind Stream tribe also turned their gazes towards Su Ming. Even Xianxia, who was about to leave burdened by his thoughts, stopped and looked towards them feeling slightly surprised. Su Ming was only a normal child to him. There was not an ounce of chi from him. After he took a look at Su Ming, he averted his gaze and no longer thought about the conflict between the two small tribes. Instead, his heart was filled with worry. He had been searching for the fallen berserker who created the strange medicine for a long time but found no clues whatsoever. A few days ago, the elder had asked him about it, making Xianxia even more troubled because he had no idea where to start. Could the fallen berserker have left this place? Ah, if that's the case, where should I even start looking? Lei Chen stood beside Su Ming. He glared at the old woman who was looking at Su Ming. He was respectful towards the elder of Wind Stream tribe, but there was not an ounce of respect from him towards the old woman. Bei Ling frowned as he looked at Su Ming. A hint of displeasure appeared briefly in his eyes. He could not understand how Su Ming could have possibly offended Dark Dragon tribe. So many years have passed, you've grown up. The old woman stared at Su Ming for a long time before she spoke slowly. There was no hint of happiness or anger in her tone of voice. Su Ming became even more nervous. He stood there, not knowing what to say. As of then, he could feel everyone's gaze falling upon him. It was something he seldom experienced and he was incredibly unaccustomed to it. Bai Ling, who was standing behind the old woman, looked pale. She unconsciously held onto the corner of her shirt tightly with both of her hands. As for Si Kong, who was standing beside her, he glared at Su Ming and looked at him mockingly. It's a pity. The old woman stared at Su Ming and continued speaking slowly. The elder only brought you up, but he did not teach you how to be civilized. You should at least think about your status. The old woman did not speak much, but there was a hint of mockery in her voice. It was a huge clash against her status as the elder. Su Ming's face immediately grew pale. It was his biggest weakness and he had it hidden within his heart, but the woman had revealed it before so many people. Su Ming bit his lip and kept his silence. Elder. When Bai Ling saw the pale look on Su Ming's face, her heart clenched painfully. She immediately spoke up and she looked at the old woman angrily. Lei Chen, who was standing beside Su Ming, immediately glared at the old woman. He did not care who she was. When he saw that Su Ming was being humiliated, he burned with anger and was about to march forward. However, the moment he took a step forward, a strange light appeared in the old woman's eyes. Lei Chen's body suddenly convulsed. That moment, the head of the guards of Dark Mountain tribe, who had been standing quietly by the side, frowned. He immediately took a step forward. Right after, his demeanor changed. A sharp presence erupted from his body and surrounded the area. When it stopped outside Lei Chen's body, a muffled sound echoed in the air. Lei Chen's face was pale as he took a few steps back. Lord Elder, there's no need to do this to the children from my tribe. The face of the head of the guards was dark as he spoke slowly. Just as he was about to take another step forward, the man standing behind the old woman lifted his head abruptly and stepped forward as well. A slightly stronger presence of power than the head of the guards presented itself. Immediately Shan Hen, who had been keeping his silence, narrowed his eyes and a cold glint flashed across his eyes like a poisonous serpent. He glared coldly at the man from Dark Dragon tribe. The air crackled with tension. Xianxia watched the scene not far away. A mocking smile appeared on his lips. In his eyes, the two small tribes were originally one, but they had become enemies. He fell silent but did not stop them. Instead, he stood by the side and watched as the scene unfolded. Su Ming lowered his head and still remained silent. Lei Chen's anger had yet to disappear. He was afraid, but just as he was about to speak, Su Ming raised his right hand and grabbed Lei Chen's arm. Lei Chen was stunned. Su Ming lifted his head slowly. His face was still pale. His frail body made him look like Allah Su who would never grow up. There was still a hint of youthfulness on his face which had not disappeared. This was due to a lack of experiences in life that would eventually come in time. Without experiencing the difficulties and trials of life, he was still a child. His eyes were clear. They were very clean and clear, only tainted by a little bit of impurity. He bit his lower lip. As he looked at the old woman from Dark Dragon tribe, he let go of his grip on Lei Chen's arm and walked forward. The gazes of all those around were still on him, but he did not mind. Instead, he took one step at a time, walking past Lei Chen and the head of the guards until he was 10 feet away from the old woman. He stood there and looked quietly at the old woman who was still staring at him. I don't have any sense of propriety. I don't have parents. In your eyes, I have neither any right nor status, but, my elder once told me that you only see one part of the rain in the world. You will never know how much rain there is when it stops. You can only see the surface of the muddy water on the ground and never the bottom. This year, I am only 16 years old. Su Ming lowered his head and spoke softly. Once he finished speaking, he turned around and walked away slowly. Lei Chen followed Su Ming and turned around to glare at the old woman as he let out a light huff. When the head of the guards and Xianxia saw that the old woman no longer spoke, they retreated slowly. They left under the guidance of the escorts from Windstream Tribe with Bei Ling and Wu Le. The old woman watched Su Ming's retreating back and frowned. There was an unreadable glint in her eyes as she turned around and walked to the back. Bai Ling, come with me. Bai Ling stood there and watched Su Ming's retreating figure. Her heart was in a mess. When she heard her grandmother's words, she left silently with her. Every time each tribe came to pay their respects, they were invited into the Mudstone City and brought to their designated lodgings. There, they stayed until everyone finished paying their respects. Dark Mountain Tribe was allocated to the south of the Mudstone City. It was a giant house made of 9 connecting houses. There were some fences around the house, making it look as if it was isolated from the other parts of the tribe. At that moment, all the members of Dark Mountain Tribe were gathered in one of the house. All of them sat down with their legs crossed as they listened to the head of the guards, who was sitting before them. The amount of people in Windstream Tribe far surpasses the amount of people in Dark Mountain Tribe. As such, the number of berserkers they have also surpasses ours. Besides, with Windstream Tribe as the leader around the area, the tributes they receive when all the other tribes pay homage to them once every few years also allow them to obtain all sorts of herbs. They even have several statues of the god of berserkers. The head of the guard spoke slowly as he swept his gaze across the people around him. Our tribe cannot hope to compare with a middle-sized tribe. I don't know just how many berserkers there are in Windstream Tribe, but there must be at least hundreds of them. These berserkers have enough herbs and all sorts of inheritances from the different statues of the god of berserkers here. Their might is not something a small tribe can compare with. The speed of their training is much faster than ours, their resources are much better than ours, even the possibilities of talented people appearing among them is far higher than our tribe. During this time, Xianxia and I will not limit your movements. We brought you here so that you can experience the might of a medium-sized tribe and the power of a strong peer from Windstream Tribe. I want all of you to make some friends while you are here. It does not matter whether they are from Windstream Tribe or from other tribes. Except for our enemy, Black Mountain Tribe, you can get to know the members from any other tribe. As the head of the guard spoke, his gaze fell upon Su Ming, who remained silent. At the same time, I also want you to meet other outstanding people from the other tribes. Find out just how much different you are from them and also set your own target, but remember this, you are not allowed to fight within Windstream Tribe. Don't worry, we are not the only ones who came here for this purpose. The other tribes also came with similar purposes. Additionally, you might be staying for quite some time in Windstream Tribe. When we come to pay homage and offer tributes once every few years, Windstream Tribe will also organize a test. If you can obtain a good place in the test, it will do you good individually. Bei Ling, you have been visiting Windstream Tribe for a couple of years. You know this place well. Come and introduce us to the strong peers in Windstream Tribe. Bei Ling, who was sitting by the side, nodded once he heard those words. There are a lot of strong berserkers in Windstream Tribe. Among those of the same age, there are 7 people we have to pay attention to, especially the first one, Yi Wang. He is. As Bei Ling made the introductions, Su Ming sat by the side. He still remained silent. The words spoken by the old woman made him feel miserable. Even on his way to the place, her words still echoed in his head. Su Ming closed his eyes and clenched his fists. Su Ming. A cold voice suddenly made its way into Su Ming's ears. He turned around and saw the chief of the hunters, Xianxia, sitting behind him with his legs crossed. Why did the elder from Dark Dragon tribe speak to you in such a way? Xianxia looked at Su Ming calmly and spoke in a low tone. It's nothing. Su Ming was silent for a moment before he shook his head and spoke. Xianxia frowned slightly. A strange glimmer appeared briefly in his eyes. Just as he was about to speak, he lifted his head abruptly and peered outside the house. At the same time, the head of the guards also looked towards the same direction intently. There was a guide from Windstream tribe, who looked to be in his 30s walking towards their house quickly. Who is Su Ming? The elder has summoned you. Please, come with me. Su Ming was stunned. He stood up and looked at the head of the guard sitting in front to seek his permission. When he gave a small nod, Su Ming walked out of the house and stood before the Windstream tribe member. I am Su Ming, he said calmly. The Windstream tribe member scrutinized Su Ming for a few moments and turned around to leave. Su Ming hesitated for a moment before following him. Just as he was about to walk out of the house, he heard Bei Ling's voice from behind. In the past, the number of people who took the test usually numbered at nearly 100. The ones who usually took the top 50 spots almost entirely belonged to Windstream tribe. It is especially so for the top 10 places. From my knowledge, there has not been a single outsider who has managed to get into the top 10 ranks for the past 50 years. It should be the same for the test this year. Remember this, cooperate with me to get into one of the top 50. As long as I can get into one of the places in the top 50, even if I'm in the last few ranks, it'll still be a huge accomplishment for Dark Mountain Tribe. Chapter 47. The Elder's Secret. Su Ming walked quietly within the walls of the mudstone city belonging to Windstream tribe. In front of him, the tribe member who was serving as his guide walked with an arrogant air that Su Ming could clearly see. He does indeed have the right to be arrogant. Su Ming looked at the city before him and at the mudstone houses. In his mind, he remembered the houses made of wood and hides in his tribe. Compared to them, no, there was in fact no room for comparison. During the journey, Su Ming saw far too many members of Windstream tribe. In fact, he had never even seen so many berserkers in all the 16 years of his life. The city was bustling with activity. Even the beast skins the men and women wore were of much better quality than Su Ming's. There were even a number of them who wore sackcloth that only the elder could wear in their tribe. These people were all berserkers with exceptionally strong presence of qi. A middle-sized tribe, Su Ming looked at his surroundings, then at the walls of the city far into the distance. He remembered seeing 6 other tribes, which were like Dark Mountain tribe outside the city walls when he was still in midair. It was obvious that the citizens there did not have the right to live within the city permanently. They could only live outside. On the way, Su Ming saw a lot of houses which were used for trading purposes. There may not have been a lot of people there, but each person who walked in and out of the houses shook Su Ming's heart. The land which he walked on was not made out of dirt either. It was covered by rocks which were pressed flat using some unknown method. When he stepped on it, the ground was hard. Su Ming, who was used to soft terrain, was not used to it. Su Ming also saw several giant bows about hundreds of feet long hanging on the walls of the mudstone city. They were entirely black and gave off a vengeful aura. It made those who looked at them chills down their spines. Are you done looking? A piercing voice turned Su Ming's attention away from his surroundings. It was the guide from Windstream tribe. He looked at Su Ming as he smiled. His smile had an air of arrogance which turned it into a mocking smile. He was not laughing at Su Ming alone but jeering at the people who came from smaller tribes and had similar expressions of awe. You can look around later. You'll be staying here for a while, so you can wander around as much as you like any time you want. I suggest that you get out of your house at night. You should go out and walk around. The night scenery in your tribe cannot compare with the likes of the night scenery in Windstream tribe. Follow me now. We can't have the elder waiting for long. The tribe member patted Su Ming's shoulder, then turned around and walked forward even more quickly. Su Ming followed quickly in silence. Right in the center of the mudstone city within the pentagonal altar, were 3 secret rooms. The elder of Windstream tribe, the man in purple who had reached the awakening realm, was sitting in one of the secret rooms with his legs crossed. The elder of Dark Mountain tribe, Mo Sang, was sitting across him calmly. Between them was a chessboard. Most of the chess pieces were made from animal bones and looked rough on the edges. The chessboard was made from a big stone with squares carved on it. Besides the chessboard, there was also a stone cup the size of a fist in each of their hands. There was hot steam coming from the cups, along with a nice fragrance spreading around the room. Mo sang, "When you came back, you gave me this chessboard and the chess pieces. You even taught me how to play chess. You must have wanted to avoid from being lonely and also wanted someone to cure your boredom." The man in purple picked up a beast bone chess piece and placed it on a part of the chessboard. Then he lifted his head and smiled. "This chessboard came from the Taya tribe. I heard that an ancient from Taya made it in the image of an item from a land far away. It's a pity. I haven't touched this in many years. Now, I can't win against you anymore." The elder took a chess piece and placed it on a corner of the board as he spoke softly. Mo sang, "I have always admired you." The man in purple sighed as he looked at Mo sang, who looked old and wizened. Memories of when they were young appeared in his head. In his memories, the person before him had been so energetic and proud. Among those of the same age, there was no one who did not know his name, yet, who would have thought the prodigy in the past would become such a wizened old man? You should not have been born in Dark Mountain tribe. If you had agreed to the elder's promise and became his berserker's son, the elder of Wind Stream tribe now would not be me, but you. Besides, you wouldn't have found your training to be so difficult. You should have reached the awakening realm a long time before I did. The elder even mentioned that you were the one who held the most promise to reach the bone sacrifice realm among all the people he's met in his life. When he spoke of the bone sacrifice realm, a bright light appeared in the man's eyes and they were filled with longing. Bone sacrifice, sacrifice the 13th piece of your spine to break the seal of destiny, thereby turning the 13th piece of your spine into the true berserker bone, as obtained by the ancients of the berserker tribe. As the man in purple spoke, the light in his eyes dimmed. I can't do it. Mo sang was silent. When he heard the mention of the awakening realm, there was bitterness and nostalgia on his face. If only you had agreed to the elder's promise that year and took Wen Yan as your wife and joined Windstream tribe, the elder would have used all the resources within the tribe to help you sacrifice your bones. If you had reached the bone sacrifice realm, the Windstream tribe would not have been hidden away here. The man in purple smiled bitterly. Jing Nan, it is all in the past now, Mo Sang said slowly. That's right, it's all in the past now. When the man in purple heard Mo Sang calling his name, he shook his head and sighed. You were only willing to see me, your old friend this time because of the child who was standing beside you, right? He should be the baby you brought back that year. Jing Nan looked at Mo Sang and spoke slowly. That is one of the reasons. Mo Sang raised the stone cup and blew at the beverage. Once some of the heat went away, he took a gentle sip. I could tell that the blood-red moon from before was related to Black Mountain tribe. Black Mountain tribes by two must have found another way. The elder placed the stone cup down. I won't hide from you. He will arrive at the awakening realm anytime now. Mo Sang, if you ask me to kill him, then, Jing Nan hesitated for a moment, then he shook his head. I can't do that. If he manages to reach awakening realm, it will be a great help to Windstream tribe. Even if you agree to my request all those years ago, I still won't do it. It's fine. The elder smiled lightly. He expected this answer a long time ago anyway. Jing Nan was not as friendly as he seemed. They both knew more than anyone about their dispute. You have your own problems, I understand. This is between me and him. It must come to an end eventually. I came here today to make a trade with you. Oh, go on. The elder of Windstream tribe, Jing Nan spoke slowly as a light flashed briefly in his eyes. The elder spoke softly. His voice was faint and only Jing Nan could hear him. Once Jing Nan heard it, his demeanor did not change. However, he closed his eyes and appeared to be deep in thought. The elder did not urge him. Instead, he took the stone cup and sipped his drink slowly. Time passed by slowly and silence filled the room. They had no idea how much time had passed when suddenly, a reverential voice was heard outside the secret room. Elder, I've brought Su Ming here. Send him in. Jing Nan still kept his eyes closed. Footsteps gradually approached from afar amid the silence of the room. Su Ming was very nervous. He walked forward one step at a time. The light was not bright inside the room. It was in fact, rather dark. As he moved forward to the end of the corridor, he saw the elder and the man in purple in the secret room. When he saw the elder, Su Ming let out a sigh of relief. Su Ming, come to my side. The elder smiled and waved at Su Ming. Su Ming walked forward quickly and stood behind the elder with his head bowed. He did not speak. Tell me your second request. After a moment, Jing Nan opened his eyes and a brilliant light manifested for a moment in his eyes. He stared at the elder, Mo sang, and continued to speak slowly. I want a drop of your berserker blood. The elder also stared at Jing Nan and spoke in the same manner. Jing Nan immediately frowned. All berserkers had berserker blood, but he was a powerful berserker in the awakening realm. His berserker blood was extremely valuable. Every time he gave a drop, he needed to train for a long time before he could recover it. Besides the members of his tribe who had extraordinary talent and proved to be exceptional, he seldom granted his berserker blood. Jing Nan looked past Mo sang at Su Ming silently. Although Su Ming lowered his head, he could still feel the man in purple's gaze on him like a needle. Is it for him? This child is ordinary. He will find it hard trying to absorb one drop of my blood into his veins. It'll just be a waste. Change your request. Jing Nan averted his gaze and spoke calmly. These are my two requests. I will not change them. If you agree to it, I will teach you the ancient berserker art, the true awakening. Mo sang handed the stone cup to Su Ming and motioned for him to drink from it. Once Su Ming took the cup, he did not hesitate and drank the whole thing in one mouthful. A comfortable wave of heat immediately spread throughout his body. Jing Nan frowned. He sank into his thoughts for a moment before he looked at Mo sang. All of a sudden, he spoke. All right, I'll agree to your two requests. But for the berserker blood, you should know that there are 3 stages to the test. I will give a drop of my blood to the top 3 contestants in each stage. To avoid any wastage, I will add a condition. If this child can get into the top 40 in any one of the stages in this test, I will give him a drop of my berserker blood. If he doesn't, you must change your request. The elder thought about his words and believed that the man before him was making things difficult. After a moment of thought, he nodded. In his head, he was already thinking about how he could benefit Su Ming similarly if he had to change his request. Su Ming listened to the exchange and looked at the white hair on the elder's head as well as the wrinkles on his face. He thought of the ridicule delivered by the old woman from Dark Mountain tribe and Bei Ling's indifferent attitude towards him. He even thought about the loneliness that he grew up with and how he would sit alone looking at the night sky. He would imagine the things written in the beast skin scroll as he gazed into the sky. All these things enveloped Su Ming's thoughts. They transformed into a strength and resolution he never had before. This resolution was even stronger than the one when he worshipped the statue of the god of berserkers. The elder stood up and motioned Su Ming to follow him. Just as he was about to leave, Jing Nan stared at Mo sang. After a moment of hesitation, he spoke abruptly. Mo sang, I have a question that has been plaguing my mind for dozens of years. I must ask you, since you're in Wind Stream tribe now, I hope you will answer my question. The elder did not stop. He continued walking as Su Ming followed him. Jing Nan's voice traveled towards them from behind. You are only at the 9th level of the blood solidification realm, but from the past and even now, why is it that I can feel a faint hint of awakening on you? The man in purple spoke quickly, but he did not reveal all his thoughts. He could not tell Mo sang that the aura within him made him feel slightly alarmed. He had that feeling of terror back then, and he still got the same feeling at that point in time. Chapter 48, 6 Numbers. When Su Ming heard those words, he felt his heart quiver. He could somewhat tell that the relationship between his elder and Wind Stream tribe's elder was not as it seems. There was a high possibility that there was some dispute that happened between them in the past. It probably had something to do with the elder's constant refusal to travel to Wind Stream. At the same time, the elder of Wind Stream tribe must have also been worried because he was still polite towards the elder even though he was only at the blood solidification realm. Su Ming recalled the sight of the elder and the man in purple walking in midair while they were still on the dark python. His heart raced against his chest. You will learn about it later. The elder did not provide any answer. He delivered his words leisurely and brought Su Ming out of the pentagonal altar. Within the altar, Jing Nan fell silent. As he gazed at the direction Mo Sang left, his face became troubled. After a long while, he brought out a small bottle from his bosom. The color of the bottle was purple and it looked incredibly beautiful. He carried the item around, so it was obvious that the item was something incredibly valuable to him. Once he opened the bottle, a nice medicinal fragrance was released. Within the bottle was a pill. It was a scattering dust pill. It's a pity there's only one pill. There's little to no effect if there's only one pill for me. But if I had 8 more. A yearning look appeared briefly in Jing Nan's eyes. I must find the fallen berserker who created this. I must find him at all costs. I've already sealed off the surroundings. There is no way he can escape. I can feel it. He's near. He's very near. It was already dusk outside. Night was about to arrive in the Mudstone City, but there were still many people wandering about and the city was bustling with activity. There were fires in various parts of the city. They were found in appliances Su Ming had never seen before and they floated in midair, lighting up the entire city. The elder walked forward as Su Ming followed him. The two of them were quiet as they walked. The test held by Windstream Tribe will begin in 7 days. The test is organized by Windstream Tribe and all the small tribes who come here to pay homage have to send representatives to enter the test. It is a grand ceremony held for you young ones. I want you to enter the test. You don't need to worry about your powers being exposed. I have already made arrangements. Take this. Besides Jing Nan, no one will know who you are. Su Ming, I can only help you so much. Everything else is up to you. The elder stroked Su Ming's head and said kindly. He swung his right hand and immediately, a faint presence of qi appeared. It disappeared just as quickly and a black straw had appeared in the elder's hand. I got this when I was traveling in a big tribe a long time ago. I suppose you can consider it a berserker vessel. If you absorb it into your blood, it can change your figure and appearance slightly. It's not much but you'll look different. This was something I really liked when I was young. This thing has served me a lot of times but it's no longer of any use to me. I'll give it to you now. The elder slapped the black straw hat on Su Ming and Su Ming immediately felt his body lurch. A cold sensation seeped into his body and the straw hat disappeared instantly. Even though it disappeared, Su Ming could still feel that the item had done the same thing as the counterfeit blood scales. It had fused into his body. The elder also told him how to use the straw hat to change his appearance. During the test, don't follow us. Stay in the house. Once we leave, change your appearance and I'll arrange for someone to take you to the venue of the test. The elder smiled lightly. Su Ming wanted to say something but after some hesitation, he chose not to speak. Nonetheless, he was determined not to disappoint the elder even if it meant fighting with everything he had. Top 40, top 40. Su Ming gritted his teeth. Su Ming, I've always instructed you to think and analyze since you were young because it would help you a lot. Now, I will give you a question. Let's see whether my little lasso can figure it out. The elder looked at Su Ming kindly. He winked as he smiled and spoke. Listen well, Su Ming. I will only tell you once. 32, 79, 248, 371, 563, 781. Su Ming was stunned. He mumbled the 6 numbers under his breath but could not figure out the meaning behind them. He looked at the elder's smile and he knew that the elder would not tell him straight away. Su Ming memorized the 6 numbers in his head and fell into deep thought. Moonlight shone on their bodies and gradually, their shadows lengthened. As their shadows gradually became faint, Su Ming and the elder walked into the distance. Time passed by and soon, it was the 6th night. The grand ceremony held by Windstream Tribe would start once morning arrived. During the 6 days there, Su Ming sat within the house given to Dark Mountain Tribe by Windstream Tribe. He meditated as he activated and circulated the qi within his body. As he did so, he would be careful. He always felt like he was being watched but he could never identify by whom. During the time he was under scrutiny, Su Ming would have to forcefully stop his training. When the strange feeling of being observed was at its strongest, he chose to lie down and give up on training. He would close his eyes and sleep as he thought about the 6 numbers. However, no matter how much he thought about them, he could not find an answer to the riddle. It was not until the 5th day when the feeling of being observed disappeared completely. Su Ming felt rather nervous about it. He had once tried to guess who had been observing him. The figure of a person would appear in his head, but he had never been able to ascertain his guess. During the past few days, Lei Chen went to Su Ming a few times, but the rest of his time was spent with Wu Le. Under the elder's guidance, they trained for the last few remaining days before the test. Although with his personality, he would drag Su Ming out and wander about the city of Mudstone after a moment of training. Sometimes if Su Ming was unwilling to go, Lei Chen would go out on his own. Every time he came back, there would be a mysterious look on his face. The look on his face seemed somewhat familiar no matter how Su Ming looked at it. Su Ming, you don't understand. There's actually such a place within this Mudstone city. I've never seen so many women in my life. Su Ming, there's a type of water here they call wine. Its taste is, do you want to try it? Su Ming, guess what I saw today? I saw Black Mountain Tribe approaching on a black cloud. But the elder from Black Mountain Tribe didn't come. I heard that the one who brought them here was their tribe leader. Su Ming, stop sleeping. Listen to me. I met a member of Black Mountain Tribe today at the place I drank wine. He's about the same age as us and he's seriously arrogant. If it wasn't because we weren't allowed to fight, I would have gone and beaten him up. Su Ming, I saw Bai Ling today. It was weird though. You think she was really tricked by us? She didn't even ask about the stone coins. But when she saw me, she asked me about you. Su Ming, I think I like someone. It's the person I talked to you about yesterday. Didn't we see Bai Ling? There was a girl beside her. She's also from Dark Dragon Tribe. She's really busty and she looks way prettier than Bai Ling. Su Ming, I finally know her name. She's called Bai Fang. It's such a nice name. During the past few days, Lei Chen would drop by and talk to Su Ming about what he saw and his thoughts about them. It was especially so during the last few days. Almost every single sentence out of his mouth was about that girl called Bai Fang. As for Bai Ling, he was usually out. Even if he was in the house, there were a lot of young men from Windstream Tribe who came to see him. They looked really friendly with each other. However, on the 6th night when Su Ming went out of the house to look at the moon, he saw Bai Ling being dragged away by his Windstream Tribe friends in the distance. He did not seem willing to be taken away. I don't want to go today. Bai Ling hesitated for a while when he was at the door and said in a low tone. You don't want to? Sure. But Bai Ling, you were personally invited by Wu Sen to join the ritual. If you don't join, you won't be able to obtain our elder's berserker blood. Don't forget just how you were able to get a place in the top 50 the last time. The person from Windstream Tribe who was dragging Bai Ling was a boy in his late teens. He smiled as he spoke slowly. There were 2 other people with them. They cast their eyes on Bai Ling and in them were hints of mockery. Bai Ling was silent and nodded his head slowly. He followed the 3 people and disappeared into the dark. Su Ming stood in the distance and watched with a slight frown. He fell into brief silence and looked at the moon in the sky. Then he walked out of the house. Wu Sen. Su Ming could still remember Bai Ling mentioning that name. According to him, Wu Sen was one of the 3 strongest among the younger generation in Windstream Tribe. Almost everyone was certain that he was bound to get a place in the top 3 in all 3 stages of the test that year. Bai Ling did not go into detailed explanation about him. He only talked about him briefly and moved on to the next person. As he walked through the darker parts of the brightly lit Mudstone City, Su Ming's body began changing. After a while, he grew 7 inches taller and his body became bulkier. Even his hair became longer. His face was no longer handsome and clean. Instead, it just looked simple. He gave off a strong presence and looked completely different from his usual frailer self. Even his clothes changed. It was a strange sight to behold. Su Ming moved his body and found no discomfort with his new image. In fact, he felt just as he usually did. As he activated the qi in his body, the 49 blood veins did not appear on his skin but a strong presence erupted from his body. Under the moonlight, even a berserker at the 5th level of the blood solidification realm is no match for me. Besides, I have blood scales. What can a 6th level berserker of the blood solidification realm do against me? Su Ming's eyes flashed and he lifted his head to look at the moonlight before walking forward. Bei Ling has just entered the 6th level of the blood solidification realm. As for his father, the head of the guards and the chief of the hunters, they are both at the 8th level. Among the younger generation, it's extremely rare for anyone to arrive at the 8th level. They would have to surpass their peers by leaps and bounds to arrive there. Wu Sen and the other two are about the same in terms of power, so it'll be safe to say that they have not reached the 8th level. Su Ming's footsteps were not quick. The path he took was strange as he only walked in dark corners. He watched Bei Ling and the other 3 people from afar. He followed them from a distance. The other 3 people should only be at the 5th level of the blood solidification realm, but judging from how wary Bei Ling is of them, Wu Sen's strength must be greater than his. If it's above the 6th level but weaker than the 8th level, Wu Sen should most probably be at the 7th level of the blood solidification realm. I cannot win against a berserker at the 7th level of the blood solidification realm, but I have the moonlight. Even if we do end up fighting, he won't be able to make me stay against my will. Su Ming was extremely confident with his own speed. He did not follow them out of curiosity. It was because Bei Ling had seemed unwilling to follow them. Since he used to call Bei Ling his brother when he was young, Su Ming followed them with mixed feelings. Time passed by slowly. The moon hung high in the sky. Bei Ling and the other 3 people disappeared into a common-looking mudstone house. The place was rather secluded. It was located in a corner of the city. Chapter 49. Thunderbolt. Su Ming stopped outside the house and stood in the dark like a hunter. He stared at the house for a moment. Then slowly, he frowned. He quickly went up to the house and opened the door. There was no one inside. Interesting, Su Ming mumbled to himself. He looked at his surroundings. There was a hole on the ground at the end of the house. He hesitated for a moment, then squatted down by the hole and observed it for a moment. He also touched the insides of the hole. Its walls were made of dirt and they were dry. It was obvious that the hole had existed for a long time. His eyes gleamed and he jumped into the hole. There was a tunnel in there. Su Ming ran along the tunnel without making a sound. As he moved forward, he began to determine where the tunnel headed. It was not hard to tell that it led outside the mudstone city. There were messy-looking footprints on the tunnel grounds. Su Ming would stop sometimes to observe them. Once he was done, he calculated the amount of people he expected in his heart. There's about 7 or 8 people. Su Ming thought for a moment and took out his horn. As he moved forward, he dug deep pits into the ground. As it was just soil and the horn was sharp, Su Ming spent no effort in digging the holes into the ground. Su Ming even saw a spot in the tunnel where the ceiling was supported by a thick round log when he lifted his head. It seemed like it was there for fear of the tunnel collapsing. Su Ming looked at it for a while. Then the corners of his lips curled up into a smile. After some time, about 10,000 feet into the tunnel, Su Ming stopped. He saw moonlight nearby, an obvious sign that he had arrived at the exit. He could also hear a faint voice floating about just outside the exit. The voice seemed to be chanting and there was a certain strangeness to it. The voice did not seem to be too far away. Su Ming kept his head low as he approached the exit. Soon after, he lifted his head to take a quick glance outside. He took a step back immediately. With just a glance and help of the moonlight, he saw a person sitting down with his legs crossed, meditating. It seemed like he was keeping watch of the hole. Judging by his chi, that person keeping watch is only at the 4th level. Su Ming was calm. Once he took a step forward, he jumped. The moment he rushed out, the Windstream tribe member sitting cross-legged by the exit opened his eyes as if he was caught by surprise. In the short period that he was stunned, Su Ming lifted his right hand and swung it gently. The young man instantaneously felt sharp pain in his entire body. It felt like firelight spreading right before his eyes, like an uncountable amount of needles. He coughed out a mouthful of blood. Just as he was about to let out a sharp scream, a cold and strong hand reached out from behind his head and covered his mouth. He was unable to scream and could only moan as he struggled. Soon enough, his body twitched and he fainted. Behind him, Su Ming's face remained calm as he placed the person down gently. He squatted down and looked at his surroundings. It was midnight. There was only silence around him. He could see the faint contours of the mudstone city from a distance in the light from the bonfires of the affiliated tribes. Su Ming also saw another bonfire burning from a different direction. However, the light emitting from the fire was not red but green. There was a certain peculiarity to the green fire, and under the moonlight, it looked ghastly. The chants he heard came from the direction of the green bonfire. Su Ming frowned. He approached the grim location quietly and slowly. As he got nearer, he squatted down. He saw something that made his heart jump. The green fire was burning brightly, sustained by numerous dried branches. Su Ming also saw some corpses within the fire. It was apparent that they had been lifeless since long time ago. As they burned in the fire, light crackling sounds could be heard. There were 7 people sitting around the fire. Among the 7, one of them was sitting right in front of the fire. As for the other 6, they were sitting together in groups of 3 by the fire's side. One of them was Bei Ling. The person sitting right in front of the fire was a young man wearing a black robe. He was bald and exceptionally handsome. Under the illumination of the fire, he seemed a bit devilish. Su Ming did not make a sound. He squatted down and watched the scene intently. Gradually, he began to piece together what was happening. Not long after, 6 whiffs of air emerged from the green fire. The air was absorbed through the mouths, noses, eyes, ears, and tongues of the 6 people sitting by the bald man's side. It made their faces even paler and their bodies began to shake. After a while, one of the 6 stood up and went towards the bald young man. He knelt down on one knee and hit his chest hard with both hands. Immediately, his body began trembling even harder. Then, a green drop of fresh blood was forced out from between his brows. It floated towards the bald young man. At the same time, a drop of dark green blood the size of a fingernail was forced out from between the bald young man's brows too. It mixed together with the blood offered by the person before him. Once the green blood fused together, a vast amount of blood veins appeared on the bald young man's body. They had a tinge of green in them. A strong presence of qi erupted forth from the bald young man's body. Su Ming narrowed his eyes and knew he had judged wrongly. This person was indeed not a berserker at the 8th level of the blood solidification realm or the 7th level but the 6th. He was already at the peak of the 6th level and was just about to break through into the 7th level. Looks like I've overestimated Windstream Tribe. Su Ming remained unmoved and focused his gaze on Bei Ling. Besides Bei Ling, the rest of them had already stood up and forced out a drop of blood from between their brows. They then returned to their places, exhausted. Wu Sen, I already gave you dozens of phosphorus blood for the past few days and I'm really weak now. The test is in the morning. Can I just give you a drop today? Bei Ling opened his eyes and looked at the bald young man with a troubled gaze as he spoke in a low tone. The bald young man was Wu Sen. There was a tinge of green in his eyes as he looked at Bei Ling. Do you intend to break your promise? I've said before that if you help me break through the 7th level and I finally obtain the Elder's Berserker blood, I will give you a tiny bit. It was the same in the past. If that's the case, you can choose not to join the first 2 stages of the test. I'll give you some blood for the final stage. Then you'll find no problems getting a place in the top 50. Bei Ling hesitated for a moment as if he was struggling internally. However, shortly after, he gritted his teeth and walked forward, kneeling on one knee before Wu Sen. He hit his chest with both hands and immediately, his body started trembling. A drop of green blood flew out from between his brows. Bei Ling was in a state of fatigue and he looked like was going to wither. Just as the blood flew out and Bei Ling was about to get up and retreat to recover, Wu Sen's eyes flashed. He raised his right hand instantly and tapped it against the defenseless Bei Ling's forehead. Bei Ling shuddered violently and was about to resist, but, the moment his finger touched him, the spot between his brows opened up and drops of blood flew out quickly. Don't worry, we're friends. I won't kill you. I'm just assisting you to not hesitate any longer and offer me everything you have for tonight. Wu Sen smiled strangely and retrieved his finger. He was just about to control the ball of dark green blood and fuse it with the blood from Bei Ling's brows when his body jolted. His eyes abruptly opened wide. He did not even have time to recall the ball of dark green blood into his body. He swiftly retreated a few steps and looked as if he had fused into the green fire. A black light suddenly appeared. As howling sounds echoed in the air, a long black spear rushed towards them like a great black dragon. It bypassed the others in an instant. It went past Bei Ling, who was stunned, and went straight towards Wu Sen. There was a loud, muffled bang. The fire exploded all of a sudden and a large amount of green flames spread around the area. A sturdy-looking person appeared out of nowhere. His speed was so quick he seemingly arrived in front of Bei Ling the moment the explosion occurred. He grabbed the air with his right hand along with Bei Ling's fresh blood and Wu Sen's dark green blood. They fell into the man's hands in an instant. The man was Su Ming, who had earlier changed his appearance. "This fresh blood is good. I'll take it." His voice was hoarse. He moved his left hand and the black spear which was stuck on the ground turned into a bundle of black mist that he held in his hand. Su Ming spoke slowly. He looked at Wu Sen, who had retreated the moment the flames scattered. Wu Sen's face was grave and there was a hint of viciousness in him as well. "You're just asking for death." Wu Sen roared, and instantly, a large amount of green air gushed forth from his body and surrounded him. It transformed him into a figure of about 30 feet in height. The green figure lifted its head and roared at the sky. It lifted its arms like a zombie and jumped towards Su Ming. At the same time, the others also reacted and activated the chi in their bodies. However, because they had been offering green blood multiple times, they were still in a weakened condition. As they were about to take action, Su Ming smirked coldly and stuck the long spear in his left hand into the ground. The chi within his body immediately rushed into the long spear, causing a large amount of black mist to spew from the spear. The moment the spear pierced the ground, a clamor resounded through the air and the land trembled. A wave of air spread towards their surroundings with Su Ming as the center. It caused the weakened individuals to step back involuntarily. Then almost immediately, Su Ming rushed towards Wu Sen at lightning speed, lifting the long spear in his left hand simultaneously. The black mist drove into the sky and turned into a faint shape of a black eagle. It opened its wings and created a huge gust of wind as it rushed towards the zombie-like figure. At that moment, no one noticed that the moon had brightened up. A sliver of moonlight appeared out of nowhere and fused into the black eagle to aid it in its fight against the faint green figure. The clash was like a thunderbolt. After a huge bang, Su Ming rolled backwards. He staggered for a few steps and quickly retreated towards the tunnel. The moment he retreated, a furious roar could be heard. The green figure crumbled and Wu Sen's face was twisted with malice. There was a wound on his chest and fresh blood flowed out from the wound. "How dare you hurt me?" The green tint in his eyes grew darker and he rushed forward instantly in pursuit. Su Ming ran forward as Wu Sen chased after him. In the blink of an eye, they disappeared into the tunnel. The people left behind, including Bei Ling, were all dumbstruck with astonishment. They looked at each other and none of them dared to chase after the duo. Before long, a muffled sound came from underground like the tunnel had collapsed. They also heard the remote sounds of a furious bellow. After a long while, Wu Sen came out of the tunnel's exit with a gloomy face. He looked incredibly pathetic and was overcome by anger. However, underneath that anger was also a hint of anxiety that was not easily discovered by the others. "I've already retrieved my blood of corpses, but I won't be refining it tonight. Find that person. You must find him. He's not from Wind Stream Tribe. Find him. I want to break his neck with my own hands." Chapter 50. The Third Method. It was a night where the moon was absent and the winds raged. Within the walls of Wind Stream Tribe's city, winds howled as they rushed by. It was like they were angry. The winds lifted the dust off the land and up into the sky, blurring out the moon. Several figures ran inside the city of Mudstone in the middle of night as though they were looking for something. However, they were in the dark because they had no idea where to start looking. It was not until the first rays of sunlight, which lit up the horizon far into the distance, that the people began leaving. Bei Ling went back to Dark Mountain Tribe's lodgings fatigued and pale. That night, he lost a large amount of blood between his brows, so his body was incredibly weak. He also watched with his own eyes the short but shocking fight. There was the spear that flew towards them like a thunderbolt and caused the earth to tremble. Wu Sen's crazed roar in anger also echoed in his ears. To Bei Ling, Wu Sen was Wind Stream Tribe's blessed child. They may have both been at the 6th level, but, Bei Ling knew that he could not win against him. In fact, he did not even dare challenge him. He did not train in the usual berserker's method. He had worshipped the statue of the god of berserkers when he was young. Yet apparently, there was a mysterious statue among all the statues of the god of berserkers within Windstream tribe. Those who received its inheritance needed to use the aura of corpses to train and gather their berserker blood to turn into a corpse. If it was successful, the practitioner would practically be invincible. Just who was that person who fought against Wu Sen? I can't gauge his strength, but if he pushed Wu Sen into a corner, he must also be a well-known berserker. Could he be from Black Mountain tribe? Bei Ling's gaze was dark. He was the most powerful berserker among his peers in Dark Mountain tribe, but he knew that once he left his tribe, he was a nobody. Bei Ling returned to the lodgings and to his room with these convoluted feelings as well as uncertainty regarding the test in the morning. However, the moment he opened the door to his room, his body shook and his pupils shrank. The hairs on his body stood up and he breathed in sharply. There was shock and disbelief on his face. There was a ball of fresh blood floating on top of the table in his room. There was a light green tint in that sphere of blood and it glowed in an incredibly strange manner. It was the refined blood that Wu Sen forced out of Bei Ling's entire body when he tapped Bei Ling's glabella. He was momentarily stunned. Bei Ling immediately turned and looked behind him. There was only darkness and it was incredibly quiet around him. His heart pounded against his chest. After a moment of silence, he went straight into his room and as he stared at the ball of familiar fresh blood on the table, his emotions were unstable. Who was that? Why did he help me? After a long while, Bei Ling grabbed the ball of fresh blood. The moment he touched the blood, it melted into his body and turned into a wave of heat. Bei Ling to quickly sit down with his legs crossed and circulate the blood in his veins. At the same time, in another room within Dark Mountain tribe's lodgings, Su Ming sat with his legs crossed on the floor. His face was pale and there was a trickle of fresh blood at the corner of his lips. However, his eyes were incredibly bright. He lowered his head and looked at the ball of dark green blood in his palm and smiled coldly. So this is the prodigy of Windstream tribe. No one is allowed to surpass him. He is the only one allowed to surpass others. He's not that great. If I can complete the third burning of my blood along with this spear, even if I can't kill him, I can still heavily injure him. Su Ming lifted one of his hands and wiped away the blood at the corner of his lips. A fierce look flashed briefly in his eyes. I was only lightly injured. I'll be able to recover if I circulate my chi. But that berserker's method he adopted is incredibly strange. The image of the burning corpses and green fire surfaced in Su Ming's head. If I can, I'd like to meet the prodigies. But seeing how crazy Wu Sen was in the tunnel, this item must be incredibly important to him. Su Ming looked at the dark green blood in his hands and placed it into a small bottle. After a moment of thought, he raised his hand and grabbed the air. A sliver of moonlight appeared from nowhere and surrounded the small bottle. Then it disappeared. Once he placed the small bottle in his bosom, Su Ming closed his eyes and circulated the qi in his body as he waited for morning to arrive. Time passed by and very soon, the sky was no longer dark. As it turned brighter, morning arrived. This morning would be different from other mornings because it was the day Windstream tribe held the test that all tribes in the area would partake once every few years. Besides testing the young berserkers, it was also a chance for all tribes to show their strength and for their future hopes to display stunning talent. This also decided Windstream tribe's outlook towards the tribes in the future. When morning arrived, Lei Chen, Wula and Bei Ling followed the guide from Windstream tribe along with the elder, head of the guards and Xianxia as they left their lodgings. Su Ming stood outside the house and watched them leave. He looked at Lei Chen waving at him with a confident look. He looked at Wula, who had a faint look of disdain on her calm face. He looked at the Bei Ling, who was silent. His face had returned a normal healthy shade of color but he still refused to look at him. There was also the elder, who was smiling sophisticatedly and nodding at him. The head of the guards on the other hand, was looking at him with a regretful expression. Then finally, Su Ming looked at the silent Xianxia, who had a strange glow in his narrowed eyes. His gaze landed briefly on him. Su Ming still stood at his place even after they slowly disappeared from his sight. However, his body and face started changing. After a moment, Su Ming had changed into a bulky-looking man. His skin was slightly dark and he exuded a tough presence. He looked no different from a normal member of the Berserker tribe. The disguise Su Ming wore this time was different from the one he adopted the previous night. The straw hat the elder had placed within his body was truly amazing. He could change his appearance at will. There was no shred of anxiety within Su Ming as he stood there. Instead, he looked at the sky and waited calmly. He knew that it was an important day for him and it was equally important to the elder. On this day, Su Ming would either display shocking results or fall into the depths of despair. Su Ming was unsure if there was a force that controlled people's destinies. He looked at the sky. It was very blue and he could not see the end of it. Among all those living on the land, who would be able to see the end of the horizon? It was one of the opening lines in the beast skin scroll. When Su Ming first read it, he had been touched but also puzzled. People always speak of heaven and earth, but what is heaven and earth? It means all that is under the sky. If the heavens had a soul, it would be an oppressive one. It is oppressing us, the members of the Berserker tribe, and it wants us to humiliate ourselves. These words surfaced in Su Ming's head. Sometimes, he would think that the heavens truly possessed a soul, but its soul was too cold. If it was not cold, why would there be prodigies and blessed people? Why would there be common people? Why would there be people like the elder, who had unequaled talent yet whose presence dimmed and hair covered in white with time? And what about people like the man in purple, who could climb above all others and reach the awakening realm? There was Bei Ling's complicated feelings, and then there was Wu Sen, who stole other people's powers. The oppression of the heavens is invisible. We can only endure it, and while we endure it, we must learn to live with it happily. If we do not, are we to fight against heaven? This was the last paragraph written in the prologue of the beast skin scroll. Su Ming never understood it. Even now, he only understood the gist of it. He had asked the elder before and the elder's answer still remained fresh in his mind. This is something very simple but also very complex. Simply put, it means that the heavens oppress us, the Berserker tribe. Either we choose to bear with it happily or we fight against heaven, but the last phrase was written in the form of a question. To my understanding, perhaps this question meant that besides going up against heaven, could there be any other way to fight against destiny? Once you grow up, perhaps you'll have a deeper understanding of it. If that day truly comes and you have attained the power which allows you to do as the words say, then perhaps you can think of a third way to fight instead of submitting to destiny or rebelling against it. After all, the last place I went to was where I obtained this beast skin scroll. It was also the biggest holy land of the Berserker tribe I've ever seen. That place is the Great Yu. The owner of this beast skin scroll is the court diviner of Great Yu. Su Ming was quiet as he continued watching the blue sky. After a long while, he heard footsteps approaching from afar. A person slowly walked towards him. Su Ming turned his gaze away from the sky and looked towards the person. The person wore a white robe and had white hair. His face was burdened by the hardships of life, but due to that, there was also wisdom in his demeanor. It was Shi Hai. Shi Hai looked at Su Ming, at the unfamiliar face before him. He did not understand why the elder, Jing Nan, gave him the task to come to this place and bring the person to join the test in secret. Follow me. Shi Hai did not find anything strange about Su Ming. After he finished speaking, he turned around and left. Su Ming's demeanor was calm as he followed him. The moment he went out of the door, he saw Shi Hai swinging his sleeve. Immediately, mist spread from his body and surrounded Su Ming. Su Ming's heart jumped, but he did not retreat. He let the mist surround and carry him into the air with Shi Hai. They turned into a rainbow of mist and sped into the distance. This was the second time Su Ming looked at the land from the sky. He still felt a little nervous, but Shi Hai ignored his anxiety. Instead, he increased his speed. Before long, he brought Su Ming away from Windstream Tribe and traveled towards a gigantic plain located at the north. Su Ming looked at the huge plains ahead of them. From the sky, it looked as if it was an endless sea of land, but as all the mist gathered towards them at lightning speed, Su Ming felt his body lurch after a moment. It felt like his body had hit an invisible barrier. The moment they went through it, everything started twisting like the ripples on the surface of water. Then he heard Shi Hai's cold voice by his ears. We've arrived. The plains were no longer there. There was a mountain right before them. Su Ming had never seen such a big mountain in his life. It was much bigger and taller than Dark Mountain. If they were placed side by side, Dark Mountain would be like a baby and this mountain would be a sturdy, full-grown man. It looked as if it had already penetrated the clouds. The summit could not be seen and only half of the mountain was in view. The rest of the mountain was covered by numerous white clouds. The size of the mountain was incredible. Su Ming could see numerous stairs on the mountain leading upwards until they disappeared into the clouds. There was a large field in the shape of a circle at the foot of the mountain. There were 9 gigantic bird statues placed all around the field. Each of the statues exuded a presence of ancient savagery that made them look especially vicious. At that moment, there were hundreds of people on the gigantic field. They were all spread out and talking amongst themselves. Su Ming's arrival immediately attracted the attention of all the people on the field. However, after they glanced at him, they averted their gazes and continued talking with each other. Chapter 51. Lad, we were fated to meet each other. Su Ming did not find the elder and the others among those who looked at him. Most of the members of the Berserker tribe were from Windstream tribe. Su Ming had left after the elder and the rest but arrived quicker than them. Once Shi-Hai placed Su Ming down, he gave him a black plate. He did not say anything and left in a cloud of white mist. Su Ming stood there alone and surveyed his surroundings. Not a single familiar face was in sight. He had no choice but to remain silent. He lowered his head and looked at the black plate in his hands. There was a number on it written in the language of the Berserker tribe. It was 109. The black plate looked normal. It was made of stone, but when he held it in his hand, it felt cold. I heard that the amount of people taking the test this time is the largest in history. There are more than 100 people taking the test. It's more than 100 people now. This is just the first stage. I'm certain there won't be so many people taking the tests for the second and third stage. After all, if they don't have enough strength to handle it, there's no need for them to be there to humiliate themselves. You're wrong on that account. There are 3 stages in the test and the first stage is the hardest. The second stage is about power and speed, whereas the third stage is a test in actual combat. These 2 stages require a certain amount of power and it also involves luck. This is something that has been proven in the past. The first stage may not seem to require any sort of power, but in reality, this stage is a test of stamina and potential. There's no way to cheat in this and it's really brutal. No matter how much power you have, once your results in the first stage aren't good, it just means that you don't have enough stamina and potential. The tribe won't pay much attention to these tribe members after that. Su Ming lowered his head and toyed with the black stone plate as voices of discussion from the people around him traveled into his ears. But still, in every single test that was ever held, the top 50 people mostly consisted of us, berserkers from Windstream tribe. The other tribes only barely made it in. It's especially so for the top 10 places. I heard that there has never been an outsider who made it in. Obviously, it'll be the same this time. Honestly, those who will place in the top 10 and top 40 will be the same people, especially the top 10. Besides those monsters in the tribe, no one else will be able to make it. Su Ming listened and gradually heard similar discussions on the same topic. Not all of the people gathered here were going to take the first stage of the test. Most of them were only here to watch. As he listened, he thought about the 6 numbers the elder told him. Suddenly, Su Ming lifted his head towards his side as he felt something. There was an elderly person approaching him quietly. When he saw Su Ming looking at him, the elderly man quickly smiled at him and closed the distance between them in a few brisk steps. The old man wore beast skins and bone earrings. Judging from his attire, he should have been from Windstream tribe. Lad, I am Bei Chong. I saw a stone plate in your hands. You must be entering the first stage of the test. That's why I decided to come and talk to you. I have no ill will, promise. The old man looked hilarious. He had a sharp mouth and cheeks that resembled a monkey. When he smiled, his entire face seemed to move, leaving a deep impression on other people. Su Ming's demeanor remained the same. Once he heard the old man's words, he nodded. Lad, I'll say this straight. Don't mind me. The level of my training may not be high, but I've lived a long time. If anything, I've got a pair of good eyes. I see your potential, And well, you're very normal. The old man winked. This test only happens once every few years. I've always come here to watch. With your potential, it'll be difficult for you to get into the top 50. Based on my experience, you'll only get into the top 100, but, the old man took a few steps towards him with a mysterious look. He looked around to check whether there was anyone looking at them. Then, he quickly spoke in a low tone. But you're in luck since you have met me, lad. I have an herb here that allows a person to bring out his full potential for a short period of time. Entering the first stage with this, you can get a place in the top 50 ranks. If you buy more of these and eat them at once, entering the top 10 ranks is not impossible, the old man spoke in a low tone. He opened his shirt slightly, quickly revealing some of the herbs he had within before covering it up again. The mysterious air around him became stronger. He seemed afraid that the herbs would be discovered by too many people. Su Ming was momentarily stunned. He looked at the old man and found himself speechless. You don't believe me. The old man saw Su Ming's expression and immediately spoke in a low tone once again. Lad, you're still too young. You can only determine the authenticity of these things after you've tried them. Once your placing increases, the treatment towards you in your tribe will be completely different. Looking at you, it seems like you aren't treated well in your tribe. That's enough. If that herb of yours is really that effective, why is it that the top 50 places in the test mostly consisted of Windstream tribe members in the past? No outsider has ever made it into the top 10 ranks either. I won't buy it. Go and sell it to other people. Su Ming frowned and retreated a few steps. The old man widened his eyes and gave a thumbs up to Su Ming with his right hand, praising him. You're good, lad. You're really good. Great of you to think of this so soon. Looks like I've been wrong. You may not have a lot of potential, but at least you have a smart head on your shoulders. But lad, you're wrong on this account. It's not that there have never been any outsiders who made it into the top 10 in the first stage. 50 years ago, there was one person who managed to continuously get first place. Surely, you have heard of this person before, Mo Sang, the elder of Dark Mountain tribe. Do you know how he made it? He bought a lot of these herbs from me that year. There was also someone from Black Mountain tribe. He too bought my herbs and got a place in the top 40. Then, there was also someone from Dark Dragon tribe. She also did the same. Hey, don't go. I'll give you a recent example. In the previous test, there was a lad called Bei Ling who got into the top 50, who bought. The old man was like a chatterbox who would not stop talking. Su Ming frowned and took a few more steps back. Lad, we were fated to meet each other. That's why I'm selling this to you. If it were anyone else, I would not be selling it to them. I sell this herb to others for 10 stone coins each. I'll sell this to you for 3 stone coins. How about it? 3 stone coins is extremely cheap. Hey, if I shout out loud that I'm selling this herb for such a cheap price, there will definitely be a lot of people who will surround me to buy it. Since fate has allowed us to meet each other, if you buy one, I'll give you another for free. The old man kept talking, and as he spoke, his spit flew out of his mouth. Moreover, when he spoke, he even clapped his hands together, getting more excited by his own pitch. Su Ming was stupefied. He instinctively took another few steps back. The old man was about to continue when suddenly, there was a commotion in the field. The sky started twisting and a giant dark python entered. There were several people standing on the python, the elder and the others. It's the people from Dark Mountain tribe. I heard that the elder of Dark Mountain tribe is extremely powerful, but there is no one in the tribe who can inherit his position. I heard that as of late, there's been a youngster called Bei Ling who got the 49th place in the previous test though. The dark python disappeared. The elder and the others descended upon one corner of the field. He stole a glance at Su Ming from afar and averted his gaze. Bei Ling stood over there, carrying himself in an aloof manner. His face was cold. Lei Chen and Wu Le looked around with small hints of excitement. Do you see that old man and the cold-looking boy by his side? They're Dark Mountain tribe's elder, Mo Sang and Bei Ling. The old man standing beside Su Ming quickly spoke up. His face was still schooled to express mystery. As he spoke, there was uproar once again, and it was much louder this time. The space outside the field before them started twisting and 5 people sauntered in. The individual who led the team was a bald young man wearing a black robe. It was Wu Sen. His face was dark, showing small signs of anger. It was obvious that the incident on the previous night was a great humiliation to him, especially the loss of his dark green blood. It made him anxious, but he did not reveal any of his anxiety. The four people behind him were also silent as they followed Wu Sen into the field. Wu Sen. He's one of the people from Windstream tribe who'll definitely get into a spot in the top 3. I heard that the berserker's method he's training with is really strange. Quiet. His mood changes at the drop of a hat. Shut up. As Wu Sen walked, he suddenly growled. His surroundings fell into silence instantly. Wu Sen's face was dark as he walked past Su Ming. The moment he walked past, he turned around and looked at Su Ming coldly. There was a hint of uncertainty in his eyes. Still, after he scrutinized Su Ming closely, he found that the person before him was not the person he met the night before. He snorted and walked past him, sitting down cross-legged at a distant spot after that. The four people with him surrounded him to protect him. Su Ming looked at Wu Sen and then at Bei Ling, who was standing in the distance before he shifted his gaze. Wu Sen trains in the Devourer of Corpse Blood. He worshipped an evil statue of the god of berserkers in Windstream tribe. He's a fierce one and he's always in a bad mood. He's not the good sort. The old man standing beside Su Ming whispered softly as if he was angry but also afraid that Wu Sen could hear him. Judging from his looks, he had failed in his attempt to sell the herbs to Wu Sen and probably even suffered because of it. Lad, don't bother that person, but if you end up bothering him, well, it's fine. I have another type of herb with me. If you eat it, you'll get stronger physically for the rest of your life. The old man looked back and tried to persuade Su Ming again. Su Ming frowned, thinking that the old man was far more talkative than Lei Chen. In fact, Lei Chen was considered quiet compared to him. The old man continued trying to persuade him. It seemed like he was not going to let Su Ming off unless he bought his herbs. At that moment, the space outside the field twisted once more. This time, dozens of people arrived. These people were talking and laughing amongst themselves. They stood in a protective formation around the person in the center, similar to how stars would surround the moon. The person was not tall and was slightly plump. He was laughing and talking to the people beside him while waving his hands around as though he was gesturing something. He had a vague presence which stood out among the dozens of people. Everyone focused their gazes on him the moment they saw him. Chen Chong. Wu Sen, who was sitting cross-legged, opened his eyes and stared at the slightly plump person. He narrowed his eyes. Su Ming's gaze also landed on the person. He could feel a faint presence, but it was not qi. It was something else he found hard to describe. Chen Chong is a lad everyone knows in Windstream tribe. He's a good lad, much better than Wu Sen, the old man quickly whispered. Don't tell the others about this, but Chen Chong is a huge customer of mine. He always comes to buy herbs from me. Chapter 52. By the side. Before long, the rest of the representatives from the other tribes arrived. These people either came with their tribes, or alone. Gradually, the amount of people in the field increased. The place bustled with activity as the people talked among themselves. After all, the grand ceremony was only held once every few years. The number of people joining the test this year was also much higher compared to the previous years. Su Ming used the chance when there were a lot of people around to take a few quick steps forward to avoid the old man who kept bothering him. The old man's constant chattering was giving Su Ming a headache. Once he avoided him, he saw, from between the gaps formed by the people, the old man looking around the crowd for him. Su Ming quickly lowered his body, not wanting to be spotted. There may be a lot of people gathered in the field, but Su Ming did not recognize most of them. His appearance was also very normal among the crowd, so no one paid any attention to him. In truth, Su Ming was not the only who was trying to be unassuming. There were quite a large number of examinees who were not from Windstream tribe entering the test for the first time. Look, that's Wu Sen. I heard that he's one of the prodigies from Windstream tribe. Isn't that Chen Chong? His name is like thunder. I heard of him before, but I didn't expect him to look like that. He really does have quite the presence, though. Did you see Dark Mountain Tribe's Bei Ling? I heard that he's also an extraordinary one. He got a place within the top 50 in the previous test. If we can befriend him, it'll be good for us. There'll be a lot of people who will be jealous of us when we return to the tribe later as well. The ones besides Su Ming did not seem like first-timers. They were whispering to each other while their faces were filled with admiration. This might be our chance. If we can catch either Wu Sen or Chen Chong's eyes and stay by their side, then our position in the tribe will surely be different. There are plenty of those who have the same thoughts. Can't you tell that there are a lot of people who want to approach them to talk? Why don't we try it as well? Hey, you, I see that you're alone. This must be your first time, right? An honest-looking young man by Su Ming's side smiled and said to him. Su Ming's lips curled up into a polite smile, and he nodded at the young man. Brother, not everyone has arrived yet, but it looks like the first stage of the test is about to begin. Why don't we go to Chen Chong and try talking to him? How about you all? Let's go together. If we go alone, he might ignore us, the young man quickly spoke as he tried persuading Su Ming and the people around him. Look at Wu Sen, his face is like thunder. I'm pretty sure his mood is terrible. We shouldn't go and bother him. That Chen Chong looks like a straightforward person, he should be easier to approach. Some of the people around him were swayed by the young man's words and he managed to gather about 7 to 8 people to go towards Chen Chong. Su Ming did not want to go, but he was dragged along by that enthusiastic young man, so he had no choice but to follow the crowd. Just as they were moving forward, the space outside the field twisted once again, attracting everyone's attention. As the space twisted, 5 people appeared. The person who led the team was a man in his 40s. The man wore a sackcloth and looked incredibly strong. There was a shocking presence of chi surrounding his body. There was a clear scar on his face that stretched from his left brow diagonally until it reached the right corner of his lips, causing him to look extremely ferocious and terrifying. It's Black Mountain Tribe. That person, could it be Black Mountain Tribe's tribe leader? I heard that there's a terrifying scar on Black Mountain Tribe's tribe leader's face, so it must be him. That's right. I heard that the elder from Black Mountain Tribe is absent this time. Their tribe leader is leading the team. There were 4 people behind the man. They slowly walked into the field. At first glance, the 4 people seemed normal, but if someone looked closely, then they would easily find that among the 4 3 were young men about the same age, while the last one was a sturdy-looking man in his 40s. Strangely, the man and the other 2 youths following behind the tribe leader were surrounding one of the young men like they were his subordinates. They even instinctively did not surpass the young man as they walked. That young man was about 18 to 19 years old. He wore a black hide shirt and had long hair. His face could not be clearly seen because the collar of his black shirt was pulled up to cover his entire face besides his eyes. He also had his head lowered, thus preventing anyone from seeing his face clearly. That young man was silent. He ignored the gazes that fell upon him and walked towards the crowd with his tribe leader. They sat down cross-legged at a corner far away from Dark Mountain Tribe. It could also be seen by how he sat down that the young man was different. He sat alone, not mixing with the other members of his tribe. Nonetheless, once he sat down, he lifted his head slightly and looked towards Dark Mountain Tribe. Disdain appeared briefly in his eyes. Su Ming's eyes also fell upon the people from Black Mountain Tribe, just like the others. He paid special attention towards their tribe leader and the unsociable young man. Su Ming was not surprised by the tribe leader of Black Mountain Tribe's power, but that unsociable young man made him feel a faint sense of danger. He could almost be certain that this person was extraordinary. But in his heart, he hated this sort of behavior, of pretending to be much more intelligent and powerful than other people. Compared to him, Su Ming even felt that Wu Sen was much better than that person. At the very least, Wu Sen did not pretend to be mysterious. Black Mountain Tribe's arrival did not incite much discussion. Compared to them, the people were much more interested in the prodigies of Windstream Tribe. After all, the reputations of these people were very impressive around the region. Su Ming went with the crowd to Chen Chong under the very enthusiastic young man's persuasion. He did not stand out as he stood among so many people. No one would notice him because he looked so normal. I'm telling you all, I never go to those places in the tribe, and even if I went, I only go there to watch the fun. Don't you believe me? As he got nearer, Su Ming saw Chen Chong gesturing with his hands and talking with the people around him, eliciting laughter from them. But it was clear that most of the laughter was just to humor him. There were even some laughing instinctively because they wanted to become friends with Chen Chong. It was as if they wanted to use laughter to fit into the group. The young man and the rest of the people besides Su Ming were doing just that. They were laughing non-stop. Su Ming stood there and smiled. He felt calm. He looked at Chen Chong, who was surrounded by all these people, and knew that Chen Chong's status was very high, and it was something he could not compare. He looked at the people beside him, who were laughing in order to try to join the group. They even used the chance to introduce themselves. They may not look as if they were trying to flatter Chen Chong, but no matter who it was clear that they wanted to get closer to Chen Chong. Dark Dragon Tribe walked into the field at that moment. When the tribe appeared, they did not incite much discussion. After all, Dark Dragon Tribe was really small. They could not even compare with Black Mountain Tribe's fame. But the moment Dark Dragon Tribe appeared, all the people, even Chen Chong, who had been talking and laughing, and Wu Sen, who had been meditating and fuming, lifted their heads and looked towards them. The young man in black from Black Mountain Tribe, who was pretending to be mysterious by covering half of his face, also looked in their direction. They were looking at a girl in white with unparalleled beauty walking among Dark Dragon Tribe. There was a fragment decorating the center of her brows glowing brightly as it reflected the light from the sun. There was a certain wildness to her beauty that made hearts race as people looked at her. She was Bai Ling. Bai Ling blushed slightly because she was under so many people's scrutiny but did not lower her head. Instead, she swept her gaze quickly among the crowd. Once she found Dark Mountain Tribe, happiness appeared on her face, but once she looked carefully, the happiness disappeared. She did not find Su Ming. Bai Ling lowered her head and followed behind the elder of Dark Dragon Tribe towards the field. She did not notice a normal-looking teenager watching her quietly from among the crowd in the distance. She also did not notice the looks of desire and greed from the young man in black from Black Mountain Tribe, who was pretending to be mysterious once he saw her. Wu Sen only looked at Bai Ling for a moment before closing his eyes again. Bai Ling may be unparalleled in beauty, but he was completely unmoved. At the moment, he was feeling anxious, and he couldn't spare another thought for anything else. Su Ming looked at that beautiful face and stood quietly where he was. He suddenly felt that the distance between him and Bai Ling was incredibly large. Bai Ling. A voice that suggested that the speaker was smiling spoke up from where Su Ming was. The voice was not loud, but it spread around the area and traveled to Bai Ling's ears. Brother Chen Chong. Bai Ling lifted her head and saw Chen Chong walking towards her from the crowd. There was a smile on her face, but there was also sadness hidden underneath that smile. Chen Chong laughed loudly. The people in front of him immediately retreated. Su Ming stood there and did not move. He looked at Chen Chong walking by him towards Bai Ling. As he watched, Su Ming closed his eyes. He did not know what he should be feeling at the moment. There was only calmness within him. When he closed his eyes, it was as if he ignored everything around him until someone snapped him out by grabbing his arm and swinging it excitedly. Yi Wang. It's Yi Wang. Look, that's Yi Wang, the most powerful person among the younger generation in Windstream Tribe. Yi Wang. He is the Yi Wang who won first place in all 3 stages of the test for 2 consecutive times. That person has incredible talent and he's the strongest of the younger generation around the region. I heard that he has the highest hopes for reaching Awakening Realm among the younger generation. He's also currently being trained by the entire Windstream Tribe. He's the future elder of Windstream Tribe. Su Ming opened his eyes and saw a person walking towards the field from a distance. That person was wearing a red shirt. He did not have Wu Sen's sullenness, Chen Chong's popularity, nor the fake mysteriousness from the young man in black from Black Mountain Tribe. He was alone, and he walked by his lonesome self towards the field. Chapter 53. Open the path to Windstream Mountain. His red shirt was like fire. It was as if there was an invisible flame on Yi Wang that made all eyes burn as they stared at him, forcing everyone to lower their heads before him. He was of average looks and did not look handsome. His physique was not very powerful either, but as he walked into the field, he aroused a feeling that was difficult to describe among those who were looking at him. Yi Wang's black hair swayed on his shoulders as he walked slowly towards them. He did not have Wu Sen's sullenness, but the calmness within his eyes made others terrified of him, even more than they were of Wu Sen. Neither did he have Chen Chong's charisma to attract people to his side, yet though he was alone, he had a presence that far surpassed other people so much that it created pressure. Similarly, he did not try to pretend to be mysterious, unlike the young man from Black Mountain tribe, but as he walked towards the field, his power and his name brought about a sense of mystery that far surpassed that from the young man in black. He was mysterious because he was Yi Wang. He was the best among the younger generation in Windstream tribe. He was the most brilliant existence around the region. He was the one that was revered to as the future powerful berserker of the awakening realm. He walked towards them calmly like a king. He did not need to talk to anyone. There would be countless people who would ignore Wu Sen and Chen Chong while they bowed down their heads before him and cleared the path for him. There were no longer sounds of discussion, either. Once he appeared, all sounds abruptly disappeared. The silence continued even when he reached the center of the field and sat down cross-legged. After a long while, faint sounds of discussion began to arise. "Hey, you saw that big shot, right? We're lucky to see Yi Wang coming here. At least our trip wasn't wasted," the honest-looking young man beside Su Ming whispered softly as his eyes were filled with admiration and satisfaction. Su Ming fell silent. After a while, he nodded his head lightly. There were still some people who arrived after Yi Wang. In an hour, all participants of the test arrived, and when they did, the sky suddenly darkened. As the clouds rolled forward, thunder roared and shook the area, making most of the people who heard the sound tremble. As they lifted their heads, they saw the clouds in the sky gathering together from all around at lightning speed. In the span of a breath, they had already fused together and turned into a gigantic man of clouds that was so tall its head could touch the sky. On the head of the cloud giant sat a man in purple with his legs crossed. That person was the elder of Windstream tribe, Jing Nan. He sat there cross-legged and did not look downwards. Instead, he was looking at the tall mountain located not too far away. That was the mountain that reached the clouds, and only half of which was visible to the eye. This mountain is the most important treasure of Windstream tribe. There is none other like it. It was passed down to us by the ancients. It is the origin of Windstream tribe. Without this mountain, then perhaps there would be no Windstream tribe. The mountain you're seeing is not complete. That is only the peak of the mountain, the peak of the real Windstream mountain. There is a mysterious beast sealed at the top of the mountain. That beast has been sleeping for millions of years and has never woken up. Perhaps it will never wake up. This mountain has a pressuring might that surrounds the entire mountain and its surroundings. The higher you climb, the more pressure you will feel. There are paths up the mountain. There are 281 stairways leading straight to the peak of the mountain. This is the first stage of the test. The same rules from the previous tests apply. You have no time limit. All of you who are taking part in the first stage of the test and are holding onto the plate can find any route you want leading up to the mountain. We will determine your rank based on how many steps you manage to take at the end. There are a lot of you here who are taking this test for the first time. For fairness, Sake, I will tell you this. The pressure on this mountain is the strongest during midnight. Now, I will break the seal on this mountain. After that, you must go in quickly. As Jing Nan spoke on top of the giant made of clouds, he lifted his right hand and waved at the towering mountain. Once he brought his hand down, the giant made of clouds immediately lifted its head and let out a shocking roar. It took huge steps and moved quickly towards the peak of the mountain. It lifted its two gigantic arms and tore at the space before the mountain as if it was trying to tear apart heaven and earth. Once it did so, heaven and earth roared. A giant crack appeared out of nowhere. The crack was horizontal, and it opened up vertically between heaven and earth. It was as if there was an invisible screen before the peak of the mountain, and it was now being torn apart, revealing the true view of the mountain within. It was still a tall mountain, but it was no longer the mountain Su Ming saw before. The top of the mountain was covered by black mist that was rolling up towards the sky. The black mist looked gloomy and let off a presence that made hearts pound in terror. At the same time, there was also a pressuring might that was nigh indescribable spreading out from within the cracks. It was like a typhoon blowing towards them from the sides. It lifted many people's hair. some even turned pale because of it and instinctively retreated a few steps. It was as if it was not a mountain within the crack, but a colossal mysterious beast that reached heaven and earth. The moment the crack was torn open, multiple faint silhouettes of people quickly manifested beside the cloud giant and turned into 8 people. Xianxia was one of those 8 people. Each of them had shocking power, and at that moment, they bit through their tongues and each coughed out a mouthful of blood. Their blood mixed together and formed a complex-looking mark that glowed red. It sped towards the crack as if to imprint itself on the mist mountain within the crack. The mountain, surrounded by mist and clouds, roared the moment the mark touched it. The mist rolled upwards and revealed multiple ancient stairways that had endured through time. Once you enter the mountain, if your plates leave you for even a second, it will disappear. You will also lose your qualification to take the exam and will be automatically transported out of the mountain. This is the only way for you to give up once you find that you cannot handle the pressure of the mountain. The plate will also record the amount of steps you have taken and will accordingly show the numbers to all those spectating. Well, aren't you going in? The person who shouted towards the crowd gathered below him was Xianxia, who was standing among the 8 people. A person suddenly turned into a rainbow and sped towards the crack. That person was the young man who wore a red shirt, Yi Wang. Wu Sen was the second who rushed towards the crack, followed closely by Chen Chong. Gradually, a huge amount of people from all tribes taking the first stage of the test rushed towards the crack. Bei Ling, Lei Chen, Wu Le, Si Kong, and even Bai Ling were among the crowd going towards the crack. Once they entered the crack, they went to a stairway that was not taken by anyone and disappeared within it. Once a stairway was taken by someone, a layer of mist would fall down and cover the path from view. Su Ming did not choose to move alone. He chose to move with a huge crowd and walked into the crack. The moment he stepped in, he immediately felt the difference between the place and the world outside. There was a pressure there that felt as if an invisible pair of hands was pressing on his body, causing him discomfort. Many of the paths leading to the stairways were already covered by mist, a clear sign that someone had already taken the path. Su Ming did not worry, but instead ran further away from the entrance. There were plenty of people that were like him, searching for a way into the mountain. However, the shape of the foot of the mountain was uneven. Some of the paths leading to the stairs seemed to be shorter. These paths were usually fought over by people, and whoever took the first step on the stairway would lay claim to it. Su Ming did not join them but went to a place that was further away. There were multiple paths there. He stood at the crossroads and fell into deep thought for a while. Just as he was about to move, he suddenly turned his head and looked to his right. As he did so, his pupils shrank, though it was barely noticeable. He saw the young man wearing black beast skins from Black Mountain tribe, who loved pretending to be mysterious, walking towards him with his face still covered. He did not even look at Su Ming as he walked towards one of the paths. For a moment, Su Ming watched as mist rolled down from the mountain and covered the path that was taken by the person, then he looked away. He walked towards a normal-looking stairway. The moment he took the first step, he felt as if the entire mountain trembled. At the same time, a wave of heat spread from the plate hanging over his chest, but it did not spread into Su Ming's body, it just kept giving off heat. Soon, he was surrounded by a large amount of mist. He could not see what was by his side, neither could he see what was behind him. The only thing he could see was the faint outline of a winding staircase in the mist before him and the dim sun hanging above him in the sky. It was quiet. That silence even gave him the impression that he was the only one on the mountain. Su Ming took a deep breath. He did not move immediately but chose to feel the pressure of the land. Once he was slightly used to it, he moved forward step by step with resolution and persistence in his eyes. He did not know that the moment all of them went in, the crack gradually closed up. Xianxia and the other 7 people all sat down cross-legged at various corners in the field once they descended from the sky. The elder of Wind Stream tribe, Jing Nan, also made the cloud giant disappear and descended upon the field. He went to Mo Sang's side and an invisible wave of air surrounded them, which prevented anyone from eavesdropping on them. There were still hundreds of people on the field, and their gazes were all focused on the 9 gigantic eagle statues around them. Lines of words gradually appeared on the 9 statues. First place. Yi Wang, 97 steps. Second place, Wu Sen, 51 steps. Third place, Chen Chong, 47 steps. Fourth place, Bai Su, 46 steps. 103rd place, Mo Su, 6 steps. The steps taken by all the people taking the first test were clearly displayed for all to see due to the plates they had in hand. I knew it. The first place is Yi Wang. 97 steps, he has such a huge margin over the second place. Look, it changed again. 115 steps. Didn't the test just start? That's too fast. Who is that Bai Su? I've never heard of him before. He's not from Windstream tribe, but he managed to get such a high rank since the start. I heard that during the last test, Yi Wang managed to take 803 steps. I wonder how far he'll go this time. It'll be more difficult the further they go. Since the very first test, no one has ever been able to make it past 930 steps. The elder of Windstream tribe, Jing Nan, was also looking at the bird statue by his side with Mo Sang. There was a smile on his face as he glanced at a name called Mo Su. Mo Sang, he should be Su Ming, right? But looking at his rank, it'll be difficult for him to get into the top 40. How about this? I'll make the conditions easier. If he can get into the top 60, then he'll pass. Mo Sang did not speak. He just quietly looked at the name Mo Su on the bird statue. There was a hint of expectation hidden deep within his eyes. Chapter 54. The Secret of the Six Numbers. There were a few hundred people on the field. At that moment, they were all looking intently at the 9 eagle statues. All of the rankings on it were the same. When they looked at it, they began discussing among themselves. Sometimes they would cheer when a person's name went up the rankings, and at other times they would feel sorry for another person who fell down the rankings. It can even be said that the test within the mountain was secondary in this grand ceremony and that the most important part of the ceremony was in the field. There were a few hundred people in the field, and while most of them were from Windstream tribe, there were still quite a number of them from other tribes. It would be accurate to say that almost all of the tribes in the region were gathered here. They would bring the rankings of the 3 stages back to their tribes so that everyone would know about it. That was the tradition, and it had been done in previous tests as well. As time passed, Yi Wang, who was in first place, had taken his 345th step, and he was gradually slowing down. Chen Chong was behind him. He had already taken his 189th step. As for Wu Sen, who everyone had high expectations for, was in the 9th place for some unknown reason. He had only taken 127 steps. However, the person called Bai Su had brought a lot of attention from the field on himself. He was in the 3rd place, and he had taken 188 steps. Who is that Bai Su? How can he be so strong? Could this person actually make it to the top of the first stage this time? This is interesting. It has been a long time since any outsider has managed to get into the top 10. Never mind that, no outsider has made it into the top 30 for a long time as well. As the people were talking among themselves, the tribe leader of Black Mountain tribe was sitting down cross-legged as he stared at the rankings on the eagle statue nearby. There was a prideful smile on his lips. He also swept his gaze to where Black Mountain tribe was. Shan Hen was seated with his eyes closed at where Dark Mountain tribe was, seemingly uninterested with the rankings. As for the head of the guards, he was frowning as if he was feeling anxious. He looked at the rankings on the eagle statue beside him and found Bei Ling, who was at the 57th place, Lei Chen, who was at the 73rd place, and Wu Le, who was at the 91st place. The old woman from Dark Dragon tribe and the rest of the tribes were also intently staring at the eagle statues. There were not a lot of changes on their faces. As the leaders of the tribes, they had to learn how to conceal their emotions. Unless there was a great change, they would usually not show strong emotions on their faces. As for the head of the guards from Dark Mountain tribe, if it were not for Bei Ling, he would not look anxious. The situation in the hundreds of stairways within the mountain was different from the field, which was filled with hundreds of people discussing and staring at the statues. The people taking the first stage of the test felt as if they were the only ones on the peak of the mountain. Not only did the thick mist cover their sight of each other, even the people outside could not see what was happening inside. Even Jing Nan, the elder of Windstream tribe, could not see through the mist which was created as a form of seal. He could not tell for sure what was happening inside. Nonetheless, there would not be any danger in this place. After all, the test had been held far too many times. Bai Ling bit down her bottom lip. Sweat beaded on her forehead as she walked forwards. She could not see the end of the stairs. It seemed like there was no end to it, causing the people who were walking on it to fall into the illusion that it was endless. The increasing pressure as they walked further ahead also made them feel as if they were being repelled by the place. It was as if there were a countless number of voices whispering in their ears to give up. Lei Chen was growling non-stop not too far away from Bai Ling. He had even torn away his hide shirt and revealed a strong upper body. There were beads of sweat trickling down his body, making him look ferocious even though he was tired. He kept walking forward, eyes lit with madness and persistence. Further ahead, Bai Ling's face was pale. He had given too much blood from the center of his brows to Wu Sen lately. His body was still weak. He would be able to obtain a small drop of berserker blood from Wu Sen during the third stage of the test according to their promise, but he was worried. He did not know whether the promise still held. Bai Ling gritted his teeth. He did not want to lose completely, so he walked forward with the pride of Dark Mountain Tribe on his shoulders one step at a time. Compared to their difficulty, the most brilliant prodigy of Wind Stream Tribe, Yi Wang, was much more at ease. He had his hands behind his back as he walked forward one step at a time at an unhurried pace. This was not the first time he walked these steps, but the third. He remembered clearly that he managed to make it to more than 800 steps during his second time. This time, he would make it to 900. The elder once said that the mountain seemed tall, but there were only 999 steps. The structure had some sort of mysterious power that seemed to change heaven and earth. The amount of steps you could take reflected how many blood veins you would be able to manifest at the end. I have to eat less next time. Ah, I definitely have to eat less next time. At another path behind Yi Wang, Chen Chong was panting harshly as he walked forward, mumbling under his breath. He was slightly on the plump side, and as he walked, the flesh on his body seemed to tremble, but there was a sharp glint in his eyes. He looked at the plate in his hands. If he stared at it with the plate in mind, he could see all the rankings in it. He knew that there was a person called Bai Su who was right behind him. Located further away was the young man in black hide skin from Black Mountain Tribe. His face was calm, as if there was no need for him to be serious about walking these stairs yet. This is the first time I've come here. Since I'm here, then Wu Sen, Chen Chong, and even Yi Wang will have to stand behind me. This time, I will let everyone know that I, Bai Su, am the best of all the prodigies in the region. There was a crazed look on the young man's half-covered face. Compared to these people, Su Ming was far behind them. His footsteps were slow. As of then, he had only taken his 32nd step. In fact, when he was at the 32nd step, Su Ming did not move forward, but lowered his head and fell into deep thought. He stared at the steps underneath his feet, and his eyes began wavering as he fell into his thoughts. The elder mentioned 6 numbers. The first number was 32. Could he have meant the 32nd step on the stairs? As Su Ming was thinking, he slowly lifted his feet and stepped onto the 33rd step. Once he placed his foot down, he did not feel any different. It was the same amount of pressure he felt at the 32nd step. There's nothing strange about it, it's the same. Su Ming frowned, then went to the 34th step. Yet, the moment his right foot landed on it, his body trembled suddenly. Same. No. He closed his eyes and felt the slight increase of pressure as his right foot remained on the 34th step. Then he opened his eyes and quickly retreated to the 31st step. He raised his foot and stood on the 32nd step, then on the 33rd. At that moment, Su Ming's eyes lit up and he took a deep breath. I see. There is an increase of pressure between the 31st and 33rd step, but only the 32nd step retains the same pressure no matter whether I move forward or backwards. It's as if the 32nd step doesn't exist. Even if the 32nd step is not around, everything is still the same. After a moment of thought, Su Ming did not move forward any longer. Instead, he sat down cross-legged at the 32nd step to feel the pressure from both sides as they pressed against his body. It made him feel uncomfortable, but 40-something blood veins manifested on his body. The moment these blood veins appeared, the pressure against Su Ming's body lessened by a great margin. If he did not pay attention to it, he would not have realized it. I can feel two sorts of pressure on most of the steps in this mountain. One of them comes from above me, and the other is the residue pressure coming from behind me from the steps I've taken. Only this 30-second step can balance the pressure I feel. The 6 numbers the elder told me must mean that there are 6 similar spots in this mountain. Perhaps this is what the elder experienced when he took the test in Windstream Tribe. It's his secret. As Su Ming sat down, he closed his eyes slowly and activated the blood veins in his body. After a moment, Su Ming opened his eyes and frowned. He did not feel that he benefited from it. Even if he circulated his qi around his body, he felt normal. There were no changes whatsoever. Su Ming could not figure out the answer in his silence, but he knew that the elder would definitely not tell him the numbers because he felt like it. There must be some sort of secret within the elder's words that he had yet to discover. Still, Su Ming scratched his head. The elder had always loved saying these sort of things since he was young to let him think and figure things out on his own. If he understood it, then that was that. If he did not, then the elder would occasionally tell him the answer. After a moment of thought, Su Ming sighed. He looked at the 49 blood veins on his body. With their presence, he could ignore the pressure in this place. Really, elder, can't you just tell me the answer? Just what is the secret behind this? Su Ming did not want to give up. He continued sitting there as he thought carefully. Pressure. The same amount of pressure from both sides. I could feel the pressure before, but when I sit here, the pressure will make my blood circulate faster, thus my blood veins will appear automatically to fight against the pressure. This. Su Ming's heart suddenly jumped, and a thought flickered through his mind, but he had a feeling that he could not handle it completely. He opened his eyes wide and took in a deep breath as he looked at the 49 blood veins on his body. Could the secret behind the elder's words be actually to tell me how to control the blood veins in my body so that they could all appear at the same time, then disappear one by one? Then precisely because the pressure in this place is balanced like the world outside, it could turn the impossible possible. Su Ming jolted. The purpose of this is to let me have a much better control over my blood veins. When I swing my fist, I have to control the number of blood veins in my body so that with each punch, I will have just the right amount of power and not waste any of my energy. Su Ming licked his lips unconsciously and closed his eyes. In his silence, he tried to control the blood veins in his body and let them revert back one at a time. It was difficult. Chapter 55. Fine Control. It was very difficult. All things were easier to do when you went along with the tide, but if you went against it, it became difficult. It was the same for the blood veins. They would appear one by one as a person circulated the qi in his body. It was also possible for all of them to appear at once in an explosive force. That was easy to do. If someone wanted to call back the blood veins one by one, then they would need to control the speed of the qi in their bodies with extreme precision. Su Ming would have to control his qi at a fine state to arrive at that level of precision. It was extremely rare for a berserker at the blood solidification realm to do so. This was in fact, not something for a person still in the blood solidification to do. This was a skill for a strong berserker in the awakening realm to understand and perform. Su Ming did not know about this. What he knew was that the elder taught him to do it. It was like a riddle. He had to find the solution on his own and find out what he was supposed to do as he thought deeply about it. He did not feel as if he was being forced into it, nor did he feel it was difficult trying to solve the problem. Everything happened naturally, so naturally in fact, that Su Ming felt that he should try it. If he did not, then it would be a waste because he spent so much time thinking about it. 2 hours passed by slowly. During those 2 hours, Su Ming sat with his legs crossed and did not move. As he continued trying to control the circulation of his qi, a strange change happened to the blood veins on his body. The number of blood veins would suddenly decrease by dozens, then would suddenly return to its full number 49. As this change continued, it gradually progressed to a steady state. All of this was largely related to the pressure in this place. It could even be said that it was by this external force that a berserker in the blood solidification realm could even perform one of the detailed controls that only a berserker in the awakening realm could do. Time passed by, and very soon, it was dusk. The mist in the mountain thickened during dusk. It was quiet, but the situation in the field outside was different from the mountain. It was bustling with activity, and sounds of discussions rang through the air. There were even some who took out stone coins and started placing bets. As expected, the first is still Yi Wang. Look at him, he has already taken 561 steps. The second is Chen Chong, he's only at 326 steps. That's nothing. I'm paying attention to the third place, Bai Su. This person is definitely the dark horse in this test. I believe everyone thinks the same way. This person, about whom we've never heard before, has taken 327 steps. He has been switching back and forth with the second place for the entire afternoon. But I wonder what happened to Wu Sen, he's only at 12th place. At a corner of the field, Mo Sang and Jing Nan sat cross-legged. No one dared to bother them. There was an invisible barrier around them that separated them from the world. Mo Sang, Su Ming has been staying at the 32nd step for the entire afternoon. I think he's already exhausted. He's placed last. Jing Nan frowned slightly, feeling that something was out of place. Mo Sang did not speak but chose to look at the rankings on the eagle statue instead. His face was as calm as usual, but in his heart, he was happy. He knew that Su Ming figured out his riddle. To him, if Su Ming could understand it on his own, it was much more precious than obtaining the berserker blood. The sun and moon appeared at the same time during dusk and started changing places with each other. Su Ming's rank did not bring about anyone's attention. They would only sweep a glance at him to see who was in the last place. As of then, Su Ming still sat on the 32nd step. He did not seem any different, but if anyone looked closely, then they would see that the number of blood veins on his body was changing rapidly. It would sometimes be 46 blood veins, sometimes 47, and sometimes 48. The change was too rapid, hence if no one paid attention, they would not see it. When the sun was completely hidden and the moon became clearer in the sky, the blood veins on Su Ming's body changed once again. Gradually, the number of times the blood veins went up to 48 increased from once to twice, to thrice, until it reached 8 times, and 9 times. At that moment, Su Ming opened his eyes and a flicker of excitement appeared briefly in his eyes. He made it. It may not be perfect, but he made it. During those 10 times, there were 9 times where he managed to only make one of the blood veins in his body disappear. Making one blood vein disappear may seem insignificant, but it meant that Su Ming had begun managing to control the circulation of his blood and qi. His blood was no longer like a wild horse rampaging around, he had managed to put a lasso around it. Slowly, he sat there and gradually reduced the number of blood veins on his blood to 47, 46, 45. It was not until the 38th blood vein that Su Ming began to lose control, and his qi began to go into turmoil. Su Ming knew that the balanced pressure on the 32nd step was no longer enough to help him. If he wanted to improve, then he would need to go to the 79th step. Su Ming's eyes were bright. He stood up without hesitation and stepped onto the 33rd step. He continued moving forward with certainty. As he moved forward one step at a time and the pressure on the mountain pressed onto him, all 49 blood veins from Su Ming's body appeared suddenly and circulated rapidly in his body. The fine control he gained that afternoon was not just an achievement, he also gained control over his blood veins, causing a muffled boom to resound in Su Ming's body as the blood veins appeared. As the sound echoed in the air, the 50th blood vein suddenly manifested on his body. The 51st blood vein also appeared once the 50th blood vein manifested itself, and it did not stop there. As Su Ming continued walking up the steps until he reached the 37th, 42nd, 49th, 58th. Once he reached the 60th step within a short amount of time, the 52nd blood vein suddenly manifested on Su Ming's body. Just one more, and he would reach the 5th level of the blood solidification realm. In fact, he could already begin training the berserker art, dark blood dust. The muffled sounds coming from his body may not have echoed too far, but Bai Su, who had taken 300-something steps on the path closest to him, heard it as he was walking. He stopped and turned back to look. This is the sound of someone surmounting the number of blood veins he currently has. Just who is it that managed to increase his blood veins in this place? He fell into brief thought, but did not pay too much attention to it. He continued walking forward. It may be his first time being in this place, but he already made preparations before he came. Bai Su knew that the pressure in the mountain would increase by several fold at night compared to the day. That was why almost all would choose to stop moving when it was night and the moon was hanging high in the sky. After all, if they continued moving forward, then they would have to pay a much higher price, and it was not worth it. It was much better if they rested for a night and continued the next day. If they did that, they would be in the best possible condition. That was why he would continue moving forward as much as possible before midnight arrived, and then would have to rest. When the blood veins in Su Ming's body increased to 52, he continued moving forward. He moved quickly up the stairs towards the peak of the mountain that could not be seen. He did not know that his speed had caused a small commotion in the field outside. The few hundreds of people in the field may only be paying attention to the top 50 rankings in the test, but they would occasionally look at the person called Mo Su who was placed last and mock him in their hearts. To them, the person who stayed an entire afternoon at the 32nd step had already exhausted his strength. But now, when one of the men in the crowd looked at the changes in the top 50 ranks with admiration and stole a glance at the last place unconsciously, he was stunned momentarily, then he widened his eyes. He saw with his own eyes the numbers behind Mo Su's name, who had been stuck at the last place, suddenly increase. 33, 37, 45, 48, up until 61, 63, and it continued increasing. He also looked at the rankings and saw that Mo Su had climbed up dozens of ranks from the last place, and his rank continued increasing. Very soon, he was not the only one who noticed the change. Many people noticed it, and when they looked over, they were all astonished. From that moment, the interest towards the top 50 ranks was no longer as high as the increase in ranks by the person who was previously in the last place. That person called Mo Su has started to rise. Ha ha, could it be that he rested for the entire afternoon and just woke up? He's already at 137th place. He climbed up so many ranks from the last place. Is he the type that has sudden explosive power much later into things? Let's see whether he can make it within 120. He's in 119th place, 79 steps. Why did he stop? He stopped again. The people who were paying attention to Su Ming's rank were looking at Mo Su's name at 119th place. When they saw that there was no longer any change to the number of steps he took, which was 79, they were disappointed. I thought I'd see another miracle, but it looks like he doesn't have enough strength. Looks like he's at his limit at 79 steps. He must have stored up an entire afternoon's worth of power and let it all out. Gradually, no one in the field paid any more attention to the common-looking name. They turned their attention back to the top 50 ranks. Midnight was near. According to tradition, no one would continue climbing the steps at midnight. The ranks at that time would be the final score for the day. At a corner of the field, Mo Sang looked at Su Ming's name as he rose up in ranks until he finally stopped at the 79th step. A smile appeared on his face. As for Jing Nan, who was sitting beside him, he was frowning. When he looked at the eagle statue, the hundreds of names on it seemed to have disappeared in his eyes until there was only one left. 119th. Mo Su, 79 steps. As Su Ming's ranking rose, Wula, who was at another small stairway in the mountain, grew nervous. She held the plate in her hands as she looked at the rankings on it. 118th. Wula, 82 steps. After a long while, when Wula saw the person called Mo Su was still at the 79th step, she let out a sigh of relief and with gritted teeth continued climbing upwards. Chapter 56. The night was his. Su Ming sat on the 79th step. He looked around him, and especially at the moon in the sky. There was still some time left before midnight. Even so, night was a comfortable moment for him. Ever since he started training in the Fire Berserker art, Su Ming fell in love with the night. He especially looked forward to the nights when the moon was full. Yet ever since Su Ming started practicing the Fire Berserker art, he had never seen the full moon. It may have appeared once, but the moon was covered by dark clouds that day. He could feel restlessness in his body when he was in the fire cave, but there was not much change within him in the end. Su Ming had analyzed it himself, if the moon had not been covered by dark clouds that day, then he may have had some obvious changes. It was a pity that today was not a full moon either, but Su Ming still felt at ease. At the same time, as the pressure increased with each step he took, the pressure also increased as the moon rose into the sky. The elder of Wind Stream tribe did mention that pressure in the mountain would increase at night. Looks like it's true. Su Ming smiled. He was not bothered by it. To him, as the pressure at night increased, it meant that his power would reach its peak. Su Ming was much more terrifying at night than he was at day. Su Ming averted his gaze from the moon and sat down cross-legged on the 79th step. He took a deep breath and began to quietly feel the difference in this place. It was just as he expected. This was the second place on the stairs where the pressure was balanced. The pressure may be balanced, but it was still much stronger than the pressure on the 32nd step. This place was extremely suitable for him to continue controlling the qi in his body to a profound state and control the amount of blood veins he wanted to manifest on his body to extreme precision. As of then, Su Ming also knew that the additional 3 blood veins that manifested when he walked to the 79th step were due to him being able to control the qi in his body to extreme precision. Just one more, and he would be able to reach the 5th level of the blood solidification realm. This made Su Ming extremely excited with the prospect of just how many blood veins he would be able to manifest once the 79th step was no longer enough for his training and he would have to go higher. Su Ming slowly closed his eyes and began circulating his qi around his body. Once again, he entered into the fine state of controlling his qi and tried to control the speed of his qi reverting into his body, making it slow down according to his will. As time passed by, the 52 blood veins on his body gradually began to reduce at a steady rate from the erratic pace when he first started training at the 79th step as he began to get used to the state. Slowly, he began approaching his previous limit at the 32nd step, but now that he had 3 extra blood veins on his body, there were still 40 blood veins left on his body as the blood veins disappeared one by one. Su Ming was calm. There was not a shred of anxiety on him. He slowly circulated his qi and focused on exercising fine control. Very soon, 2 hours passed by. At that moment, many people had already stopped moving forward in the mountain. They chose to sit down cross-legged on one of the steps to train and observe the rankings on the plate in their hands. They were also waiting for daylight to arrive so that they could continue competing against each other. Wu Sen panted harshly. His face was pale. After he gritted his teeth and arrived at the 295th step, he finally caved under the pressure and sat by the side. His face was dark. As he looked at the mist, there was uncertainty in his eyes. My blood of corpses, shit. That person stole my blood. Without it, not only will I be unable to use my powers accurately, I'll also weaken rapidly. I can already feel myself becoming weaker. I cannot let the elder know about this. If he learns that I lost my blood, then even if he helps me retrieve it, I'll lose my value in his eyes. Once he thought of the horrific consequences, Wu Sen clenched his fists. There was a hint of fear under the layer of uncertainty in his eyes as well. I definitely can't let other people know about this, especially the people who offered me their corpse blood in the past. I've been oppressing them these past few years because I was strong and my status in the tribe was high. If they knew that I lost the blood of corpses, they'll immediately betray me. What should I do? What should I do? Wu Sen's face was vicious as he gritted his teeth. Still, there was uncertainty on his features. Chen Chong was panting harshly. He was mumbling under his breath as he walked. When he looked at the brightening moon in the sky despite it being covered by mist, he wanted to rest and wait for tomorrow. Yet the moment he looked at the rankings on the plate in his hands and saw that the person called by Su had surpassed him by 2 steps, he felt challenged. You bastard! I won't take this lying down. Chen Chong gritted his teeth and continued walking. At the same time, Bai Su from Black Mountain Tribe was also panting harshly as he looked at the plate in his hands and continued walking despite the increasing pressure brought by the moon. It was as if he was competing with Chen Chong and was forcing himself to continue climbing the steps. It was not until an hour later that Chen Chong let out a huge roar and sat down by the side with his legs trembling. He growled a few times at the quiet mist around him. Go on ahead, you bastard, I won't compete with you today anymore. I'll do it tomorrow. Perhaps Bai Su felt it, because after he took a few more steps, he flopped onto the ground. Yet when he looked at his rank, there was a dark smile on his lips. Lei Chen was sitting somewhere around the 130th step with extreme unwillingness and was panting heavily. Many people had already stopped, but there was one person who kept moving forward. 563, 567, 572, Yi Wang is actually walking during midnight. The second place is Bai Su. He only took 397 steps, but Yi Wang is already up to 500-something steps. Could he be ignoring the stronger pressure at night and wanting to continue walking? As expected of the strongest among the younger generation, that perseverance of his is not something the others can compare. The few hundred people in the field were all staring at the rankings on the eagle statues. Right now, the only number of steps that was changing on the board belonged to the person at first place. The others who were partaking in the first stage of the test had all stopped. 587, 589, it changed again. This time it's 595. The field was in an uproar. Everyone's attention was focused on the first place. Even the leaders from other tribes were also sighing in respect for Yi Wang. Mo sang, "My tribe's Yi Wang has really high potential. How is he compared to you?" The elder of Wind Stream tribe, Jing Nan, smiled as he looked at the ranks on the statue and spoke slowly. Mo sang was calm as he smiled. Not bad. Jing Nan smiled, but he no longer talked about it. At that moment, Yi Wang's gaze was firm as he continued walking forward with his hands behind his back despite the sweat pouring down his forehead. Every single step he took was hard, but he did not hesitate. He only stopped when he reached the 600th step. There was a smile on his face as he sat down by the side. The last time I was here, I went up to 580 steps on the first night. This time, I surpassed myself by 20 steps. That's good enough. I wonder if there's anyone who will be able to find the test at the 562nd step. Still, I'm pretty sure it'll be same as last time. No one will have the right to experience the test at the 562nd step. While mumbling under his breath, there was a prideful look on his face that could not be concealed. The 562nd step was a trap. He failed it when he arrived at that place the first time he took the test and only succeeded the second time. It was now his third time, and he no longer paid too much attention to it. To him, there was no one among the people taking the test who could hope to compete with him. There was no one who had the right to obtain his attention, either. He had been looking at the plate the entire day as well. However, he was not comparing his score with the other competitors but with himself. Once he stopped, sounds of discussion arose continuously in the field outside. In their sights, once Yi Wang stopped, the competition for the day had also halted completely. After that, they would have to wait for the next day for the next round. The first is Yi Wang, second is Bai Su, third is Chen Chong, 12th is Wu Sen. Until now, there's only one outsider among the top 10 ranks, the others are all from Wind Stream tribe. But the 48th place is Bai Ling, and the 49th place is Si Kong. They're also outsiders. I wonder whether those two will be able to maintain their rank in the top 50 tomorrow. After all, today is only the first day. The key that decides the results of the competition is tomorrow. Just where did Bai Su come from? That's a shocking result he has. He's in second place. He even topped Chen Chong. This person will be a famous berserker in the future. It hasn't ended yet. Something unexpected might happen. The buzzing sounds of discussion gradually died down. The hundreds of people on the field sat down cross-legged and waited for the second day to arrive. Gradually, the only sounds within the field that could be heard were ones of breathing. Mo sang, "Let's go back to the tribe together and continue playing chess. We'll see whether your Su Ming can reach the top 50 tomorrow." Jing Nan smiled and looked at Mo Sang. Mo Sang did not speak, but looked at Su Ming's name on the eagle statue instead. His rank had fallen from 120 to 123. He nodded his head. Just as they were about to leave, the elder's pupils shrank as he saw something at that moment. Very soon, some of the people on the field who had yet to rest and were still looking at the ranking board occasionally let out surprised cries. He moved. That person called Mo Su moved. That surprised cry immediately led those who had already closed their eyes to open them once more instinctively and look over. When they saw it, there was amazement on their faces. Jing Nong, who was about to leave, stopped. He, too, turned over and stared at the statue. He was not the only one. All the people on the field, including Dark Dragon Tribe's elder, Black Mountain Tribe's leader, and the leaders from other tribes, looked over. After all, everyone who was partaking in the test had already stopped moving that night. The sudden rise in the ranks by that one person was incredibly eye-catching. Deep in the mountains, Su Ming, who was sitting and meditating on the 79th step, suddenly opened his eyes. His control over the reduction of the blood veins in his body stopped at the 28th blood vein. That was his limit. He could no longer continue. This time, it was much easier and smoother than before. The time he spent was also much shorter. The reason was because it was night. There was a faint hint of the red moon in Su Ming's eyes as he sat under the moonlight. He slowly stood up and looked at the winding staircase. A bright flash appeared briefly in his eyes. The next place, Su Ming lifted his right foot. Under the moonlight, there was no other person who would dare continue walking up the mountain besides him, be it Chen Chong, Bai Su, or even Yi Wang. No one else dared to continue moving forward. Only he, Su Ming, pressed on. The night was his. Chapter 57. The fifth level of the blood solidification realm. There was brightness in Su Ming's eyes. Under the moonlight, when no one dared to move an inch in the mountain, he welcomed the incredible pressure brought by the mountain and walked forwards one step at a time. 80th step, 81st, 82nd. The pressure in the mountain during midnight was much stronger than in the day, and it became even more startling the higher he climbed. The moon shone brightly in the sky, and nothing seemed out of place. Yet it was precisely because it was night, and the night belonged to Su Ming, that as he walked, fine threads of moonlight that were unnoticeable fell onto the land and fused with Su Ming's body, causing the faint shadow of the moon in his eyes to become clearer. Slivers of cold circulated in Su Ming's body, causing the speed of his footsteps to increase as he continued walking. 87, 88, 93, very soon, Su Ming arrived at the 99th step. Just as his right foot landed on the step, Su Ming trembled. Waves of heat caused by his qi erupted forth from his body, making him shake slightly. Immediately, 52 blood veins appeared on his body. The blood veins seemed to twist around to form a strange picture. Su Ming stopped and roared towards the heavens. The sound was not loud, and it only echoed around his surroundings. Nonetheless, the 53rd blood vein manifested suddenly on his body. The appearance of that blood vein meant that Su Ming broke through the 4th level of the blood solidification realm and reached the 5th level. There was a muffled sound of thunder roaring within his body at that moment, and the sound echoed in his surroundings, causing a string of booming noises. Yet the sounds seemed to be swallowed by the black mist by his side, and he did not know where the sounds went. The moment Su Ming broke through the 4th level of the blood solidification realm and reached the 5th, on another stairway nearby was Chen Chong, who was sitting down exhausted as he was mumbling under his breath and was about to rest. His body suddenly jolted due to shock, and he looked at the black mist by his side instinctively. There was a muffled booming sound echoing in his ears. It was a sound he was familiar with. This is, damn it, someone actually managed to break through in this place. Chen Chong was stunned momentarily, and disbelief filled his eyes. The flesh on his face trembled. He had never heard of anyone who managed to break through and reach the next level in the first stage of the test. This was the first time it happened. He rubbed his eyes with force, then, when he felt that there was something wrong with his actions, he immediately changed to rubbing his ears. He turned his head to listen carefully, and his ears moved strangely before they turned red in the blink of an eye. Chen Chong had been blessed with great talent, and his hearing was especially good. Even if the distance was great and no one else could hear a thing, he could still hear clearly. This was something he was used to since he was young. Now that his powers increased the higher he was in the blood solidification realm, he became even more proud of himself. As he listened, bitterness appeared on Chen Chong's face. He also felt indignant. Damn it, just what sort of luck is this? How could he break through here, of all places? God, why didn't this happen to me? Chen Chong lamented as if he was extremely jealous. Most of the other people besides Chen Chong, who had exceptionally good hearing, did not notice the muffled boom in the air. The only other person who noticed was Black Mountain Tribes by Su, who was extremely close to Su Ming. He was sitting somewhere above Su Ming when he opened his eyes abruptly. He looked surprised as he turned and looked at the mist behind him. Someone broke through to a new level. Bai Su's face was dark. He remembered hearing the sound of blood veins increasing on a person some time ago. Once he connected the dots, there was a flash in his eyes, but he was not too bothered by it. He took out the plate and looked at the change in the rankings. With just one glance, he saw a name suddenly rising through the ranks rapidly as everyone else was staying put. At that moment, there was an uproar in the field outside the mountain due to Su Ming's actions. Almost everyone's focus was on the one line belonging to Mo Su on the ranking board on the eagle statues. In the past, everyone would choose to rest during the night for the first stage of the test. It was the action chosen by those within the mountains, and it was the same in the field. Yet this night was different from those of the past. All of this was because there was a name rapidly rising up the ranks at that moment. He moved 99 steps. He moved from 79 steps to 99 steps. That person has been like that since the beginning. Once he rested enough, he'll start climbing at a mad pace. He's Mo Su, I remember him. He was in the last place previously, then suddenly rushed forward with an explosive force and went up to the 119th place before he stopped. He fell to the 123rd place after that. Look, he's now ranked 113th, no, 109th, 10 to 101 Street. He's ranked 101st now. He's good. Haha, I didn't expect to see such a thing tonight. Very well, let's see just how far that Mo Su can go. There were multiple discussions as the field went into an uproar. It was even livelier than it was during the day. The people who did not bother looking at the names after the 100th were also looking with their eyes wide open. In the previous tests, almost no one would pay too much attention to those placed at the bottom. Their attention would usually be on the top 50 ranks, or even fixed at the top 30 ranks up till the top 10. Some would even only look at the top 3. But it was different this time. A situation that was rarely seen brought about talk among the people in the field. Yet as they talked among themselves with excitement, keeping their eyes glued to the ranking board, they did not put much importance on it. To them, that young man called Mo Su just found a way to spend his time while everyone else taking part in the test was resting. Once daylight arrived and all the contestants started moving once more, they would automatically ignore Mo Su. After all, Mo Su could not hope to compare with the prodigies no matter how high his rank or how many steps he took. At that moment, Su Ming's actions also caught the attention of most of the contestants on the mountain. Most of them were resting as they looked at the plates in their hands. The ones who were placed at the lower end of the ranks were especially nervous, but those who were placed higher up just took a look at it and no longer paid attention to it. Wula was very nervous. She was sitting at the 112th step as she widened her eyes and stared at the plate. She took special notice of the person called Mo Su because that person had managed to climb up many ranks from the last place in one go, and it made Wula feel extremely stressed. I've worked hard for the entire day to make it to here and finally managed to get into the top 100. That damn Mo Su, just who is he? How could he do this? Everyone is resting right now, and the pressure has increased due to the night. Why is he doing this? Wula gritted her teeth due to her anxiety and grievance. But after a moment, Mo Su stopped moving up the ranks once he was at the 101st place as if he had stopped moving. Wula let out a sigh of relief. He's at his limit. Lei Chen was sitting down cross-legged at the 135th step and looking at the plate in his hands. He was also looking at Mo Su's name, but there was a different look in his eyes. It was as if he was deep in thought. At the same time, Bei Ling, who was sitting at the 206th step, was also looking at the ranks on his plate, but he did not pay much attention to it. To him, that person was just trying to get attention. He did not move during the day but only moved at night. What else could he be doing besides trying to get attention? Such a cheap trick. Bei Ling smiled coldly. Situated somewhere around the 200th step, but at a location lower than Bei Ling, was Sikong from Dark Dragon Tribe. He was frowning. He had been looking at the plate multiple times during the day and was searching for Su Ming's name, but he could not find it. He automatically ignored Mo Su's name climbing up the ranks. To him, Su Ming's rank should be around his. There was no way he could be in the hundreds. If that was really the case, then he would find it hard to accept that he lost to a weakling. On another staircase was Bai Ling, who was sitting somewhere around the 130th step. She lifted her head and looked at the moon. She did not look at the ranks. There was uncertainty on her face as she thought about something. The people on the field waited for a while. When they saw that Mo Su was stuck at the 101st place, they became disappointed but were also not too bothered by it, as if they expected that to happen. The leaders of the tribes averted their gazes and no longer looked at the ranks. The old woman in Dark Dragon tribe closed her eyes slowly. She never looked at the ranks since the beginning, as if she was never interested in them in the first place. There was a mocking smile on Black Mountain Tribe's tribe leader. The only person he was paying attention to was Bai Su. If there was anyone else worth his attention, then it would be Yi Wang. To him, the only person who could be Bai Su's opponent was Yi Wang. Once they saw that there was no change in Mo Su's rank after a while, the sounds of discussion gradually disappeared in the field. It's clear that that person accumulated his strength and chose to move when no one else was moving. He must know that he won't get much attention otherwise and is using this method to gain some fame. That's right. That's a good move though. At the very least, I remember him now. I'd like to see how he looks like. Forget it. Let's go rest. Tomorrow is the main event. The top 50 ranks might change. Ah, he's moving. He's moving. Just as the excitement from before was about to completely die down, a surprised cry echoed through the surroundings. Mo Su's rank climbed up once again. The number of steps behind his name was also rising up at an unbelievable pace. 100 steps. 103, 107, 112. Chapter 58. Do you believe it? Su Ming started moving again. He lifted his foot and placed it on the 100th step. He stayed on the 99th step for a long time before because the moment the 53rd blood vein manifested, the qi in his body started churning madly and surrounded his body. He needed to get used to the sudden explosive appearance of the blood vein before he could continue onwards. After all, the manifestation of that blood vein meant that he reached a breakthrough. It was not just some normal manifestation of a new blood vein. Once he started moving, Su Ming rushed forward abruptly. His body seemed to continue absorbing the moonlight as he pressed onwards. In the blink of an eye, he reached the 115th step. He did not stop. As he felt the pressure of the mountain increasing on him, Su Ming rushed forward. 120 steps, 130 steps, 150 steps, 160 steps. Within the span of a few breaths, Su Ming took about 60 steps. When he was standing at the 160th step, Su Ming suddenly felt as if there was an abrupt increase in pressure from the mountain. It was as if a sudden force erupted forth and pressed onto his body. Yet at that moment, the bright moonlight surrounded Su Ming's entire body, causing his tied-up hair to move on its own under the moonlight. It would have been fine if he did not move, but now that he did, half of the people in the mountain and the entire field outside fell into dead silence. Wu-La was stunned momentarily. She had been worried about her own ranking. She originally felt affronted and defensive, but now, as she was stunned, the complicated feelings she had disappeared completely. She understood then that she was not at the same level as the other person. If they were not even in the same level, then why should she compare herself to him? If she did, then she would just be embarrassing herself, nothing more. Lei Chen stood up abruptly and stared dumbly at the plate in his hands. He had been trying to guess the identity behind the person called Mo Su, but now, he was beginning to doubt his own guess. He could not say for sure whether what he had been thinking was correct. Bei Ling glared at the plate in his hands as his heart pounded against his chest. There was a brief moment where he felt as if a chill crawled down his spine as he watched the person called Mo Su climb up 60 steps within the span of a few breaths. That speed was unbelievable and he almost forgot to breathe because of it. He originally thought that the person was just trying to gain attention. That was why he chose to travel at night. Yet as he looked at it, there was no way Mo Su was doing it to gain attention. It was clear that he had the ability to do so since the beginning. If that was not the case, it would have been impossible for him to climb up 60 steps within the span of a few breaths. The entire mountain was in silence. Within that silence, Chen Chong blinked rapidly. He did not want to be bothered by it, but his instincts told him that that person called Mo Su was the one who brought about the sudden roar just now. It should be him, it should be. But just who is he? He's not from Windstream Tribe, that's for sure. I wonder whether I saw him on the field just now. Chen Chong still did not know that while he was still on the field surrounded by people, there was one person whose smile was extremely faint as he stood among the crowd trying to get into his circle of friends by laughing. He was of average looks, so average that people would not notice him. That person was looking at Chen Chong as he laughed and chatted with his friends, surrounded and practically worshipped by the people around him, and watched as he walked towards Bai Ling. Just as Chen Chong was troubled by his thoughts, Bai Su widened his eyes where he sat on the stairway closest to Su Ming. It was as if he was trying to see through the mist and look at the person who was walking on the stairway right beside his. Bai Su was different from Chen Chong. He was too close. He could practically tell that the person called Mo Su was very close to him, and he was right behind him on the other stairway covered by mist. He's just at the 160th step, though. There's still more than twice the distance between us. He's of no threat to me. If you can come close to me, then it'll be not too late for me to pay attention to your existence. As Bai Su thought about it, he smiled coldly and closed his eyes. On another stairway on the other side of the mountain, Wu Sen stared at the ranks on the plate with a dark face. His gaze stayed especially long on Bai Su and Mo Su's names. I'm at the 12th place and only at the 295th step, I won't be able to get into the top 10. I can tell that I'm getting weaker. The person who stole my blood must be one of these two. Wu Sen was not stupid. He was, in fact, very intelligent, or else he would not have been able to maintain a relatively high position within the tribe, which was filled with strife and confrontations, much less control Bai Ling and the others. Bai Su. Wu Sen's eyes swept past Mo Su's name, and he stared at Bai Su's name, who was ranked second on the plate with a vicious look in his eyes. Even so, there was a hint of fear and caution hidden deep within that viciousness. Wu Sen had no confidence that he could snatch back his blood from a person ranked second in this test. Si Kong was nervous. As of then, his demeanor was similar to how Wu Le had acted before. When he looked at ranks and at Mo Su's name, who was at the 160th step, his heart pounded against his chest. He was afraid that he would be overtaken. He would not be so worried if it was daylight, but it was night time now. He had no confidence to continue onward. Besides, he was currently ranked 49th. Once he was overtaken, then he would be placed at the 50th spot. It may seem like it was just small difference, but the meaning within the rank was completely different. Besides them, almost everyone taking part in the test had their eyes fixed on Mo Su's name on their ranking plates. Only Yi Wang never looked at the plate. It was not as if he did not know about what was happening. It was just that with his personality, even if he knew, he would not pay attention to it. However, the field was even quieter compared to the silence in the mountain. It was as if even breathing was halted, and the field was enveloped in dead silence. The force that was halting the people's breathing on the field was their own shock, which stemmed from the one name they were all looking at on the ranks shown on the eagle statues. 63rd. Mo Su, 160 steps. After the sudden explosive increase in steps, many among them no longer treated Mo Su as an entertainment to pass time. They were regarding that name with importance because the sudden increase of 60 steps caused them to be in shock and disbelief. If it was during the day, then perhaps they would be just shocked, but it was night. It was night, when the pressure in the mountain was 100 times stronger than during the day. Most of them believed that if he could take 60 steps within the span of a few breaths during night, then that number would increase by several folds during the day. There were few who could do what Mo Su did among all those participating in the test. Who is he? Mo Su, I just did a calculation. He went from 99 steps to 160 steps within less than 10 breaths. This is unbelievable. His rank went up from 101 to 62 within the blink of an eye. This person, if he had this sort of ability, then if he did what he just did during the day, he would have gotten into the top 30 ranks. Why is he doing this at night? After a long while, sounds of discussion gradually rose within the field, and they grew stronger by the moment. Even the leaders from other tribes were also looking at the ranks. However, the old woman from Dark Dragon Tribe and the tribe leader of Black Mountain Tribe still paid no attention to it. That night was bound to be different. On that night, all attention was bound to belong to one person, Su Ming. There was a faint smile on Mo Sang's lips as he looked at the ranks on the eagle statue. The expectation within him became stronger. He knew that Su Ming had completely understood the meaning behind the 6 numbers. As for Jing Nan, he looked calm as he stood beside Mo Sang. There was no changes whatsoever on his face. If he could not hide his emotions, then he would not have been able to obtain his current power and status. Not bad, Mo Sang. You taught the child you brought back well. Honestly, I've always been curious about his birth. Jing Nan smiled as he looked at Mo Sang. Curious? Would you believe me if I told you he was the prince of the great Yu dynasty? Mo Sang looked at Jing Nan and smiled as he spoke. Jing Nan could not tell whether he was lying from his demeanor. Perhaps Mo Sang would forever be the only one who knew the secret to Su Ming's birth. Why don't you just say he's the son of the god of berserkers? Interesting. How interesting. Jing Nan was momentarily stunned, then he started laughing out loud. Perhaps he might be. Mo Sang smiled as he spoke. Jing Nan laughed, but in his heart, he was shocked. He was not sure whether he should believe in Mo Sang's words. He did not like that thought. For all the years he had lived, he would always have that sort of feeling whenever he met Mo Sang. At that moment, there was another cry of surprise among the discussions and commotion in the field. He's moving. Just when is he going to stop? Look, 168 steps. 172, 179. This speed, he seems to be slower than before. This should be his last charge. I say he'll only reach 200 steps at most, nothing more. That's about it. I think the 190s would already be very difficult for him now. This is night time, after all. The higher he climbs, the stronger the pressure will be. Numerous pairs of eyes were focused on the ranks on the various eagle statues amidst the sounds of discussion. Some of those gazes were cold, some disdainful, some expectant, some admiring, and some filled with jealousy. At that moment, Su Ming's entire body was surrounded by moonlight as he continued walking forward one step at a time on the stairway. As he walked, the 53 blood veins on his body let out a brilliant red glow. As he pressed onwards, the 54th blood vein also manifested suddenly. The 55th, 56th, 57th blood vein also appeared simultaneously soon after the 54th, causing the blood red glow on Su Ming's body to become stronger. It filled his body with a powerful force that seemed ready to erupt. Su Ming growled and took another big step forwards onto the 186th step. Once he did so, the banging sounds that signaled the increase of blood veins reverberated once again through his body. That sound made by Su frown on the other mist-covered stairway. It also made Chen Chong, who was listening carefully, grit his teeth, hoping and wishing fervently that his body would make the same sounds. 189, 192, 199, 200. The ranks on the eagle statues in the field changed once again. First, Yi Wang, 600 steps. Second, Bai Su, 397 steps. Third, Chen Chong, 391 steps. 48th, Bei Ling, 206 steps. 49th, Si Kong, 201 steps. 50th, Mo Su, 200 steps. Chapter 59, Unimpeded. 50th, Mo Su, 200 steps. The faces of all people who saw that one line on the ranks shown on the eagle statues changed. The previous looks of disdain, scorn, or even amusement were completely gone like the wind. No one treated Mo Su as an entertainment for them to spend their time anymore. They had just witnessed a miracle and saw something unbelievable happening before their own eyes. This person made it from the last into the hundreds, then to the 50th place. There were even some in the field who were in disbelief to what they just saw. They did not imagine that such an incident could occur. Mo Su even did this while everyone was not moving, and he pushed forward from the last place to the top 50 ranks. He even did all this during midnight. This was too shocking. Hence most of the people in the field had already ignored the striking results in the top 10 ranks, neglected by Su, who was in second place, and had all their attention drawn to Mo Su's name. Just how far can he go? He'll definitely make it to the top 30. I don't think so. He seemed to not have enough energy during the last charge. But no matter what, if he can enter the top 50, then it means he's very powerful. The sounds of discussions continued like waves and did not stop. The night should have been quiet, but at that moment, it was impossible for the spectators to remain silent when they had just seen something they had never seen before. In fact, the field was even livelier than during the day. Su Ming made it to the 50th place, and all eyes were on him, no matter whether it were the hundreds of people on the field, or the participants of the test who were also in the mountain. While those who were below the top 50 were angry that he suddenly surpassed them, they were also filled with respect. As for those within the top 50, they were all staring at the plates within their hands and looking at Su Ming's rank. To them, Su Ming had just become a threat. The threat may yet not be great, but nonetheless, they started placing some importance to his existence. As for those in the top 20 and above, they did not place much importance on him. However, the ones who were the most anxious at that moment would definitely be Xikong and Bei Ling. One of them was placed 49th, and the other 48th. That person who suddenly made it to the top 50 was like a thorn in their side. It was especially so for Xikong, whose face was pale at that moment. He clenched his fist. He was the son of the tribe leader of Dark Dragon tribe. He had gritted his teeth and made it to this rank after much difficulty. He had felt prideful for his achievements, but as of now, his heart was racing against his chest. Don't go up, don't go up, don't go up, he was screaming in his heart while he stared at the rank shown on the plate with bloodshot eyes. On a stairway located further away, Bei Ling stood up. He was also extremely nervous. He widened his eyes and stared at the plate, but did not scream in his heart like Xikong. Instead, he gritted his teeth and turned, walking towards the 207th step. As most of the people were staring at the plate, Su Ming stood at the 200th step and took a deep breath. The persistence in his eyes was as hard as steel. On his body, all 58 blood veins were shining brightly. If there was no mist covering them, then the light would have definitely shone with dazzling brilliance, and even those far away would be able to see it. Yet now, due to the presence of the mist, everything was hidden away deep within the mountain. Su Ming felt a strong power blossoming within his body. He lifted his head and then looked at the night sky and the moon through the thin layer of mist above him. He did not know why, but ever since he started training in the Fire Berserker art, he fell in love with the night. He did not hate the day, per se, but he no longer looked forwards to it. Among all those living on the land, who will be able to see the end of the horizon? Su Ming mumbled under his breath as he stared at the dark sky. There was a brilliant flash in his eyes that disappeared as soon as it appeared. If no one was looking into his eyes closely, they would not have discovered it. Su Ming lifted his right foot and went forward once more. He stepped onto the 201st step and the 202nd step. The moment his feet landed, Xikong, who was on a stairway further away from him, stood up with a vicious look and roared towards the sky, then moved forward in a frenzy. He watched with his own eyes as his own ranking fell from 49 to 50. It was just a difference in one place, but that was akin to the difference between heaven and earth. It made Xikong, prideful as he was, unable to accept it. If he had been overtaken since a long time ago, he would not have minded it, but once he had managed to get into an advantageous position from the start and then had his position suddenly taken, he found it hard to accept. He gritted his teeth and walked forward step by step as he growled lowly under the incredible pressure caused by the moon on the mountain with a vicious look on his face. At the same moment, Bei Ling also moved. Their actions were like a butterfly effect. The people placed 47th, 46th, and 45th also could not hold still any longer and stood up, unwilling to give up. All of them began walking once more. Once they started moving, it was as if the few hundred people in the field were given a powerful medicine that made them excited. The sounds of discussion were like the endless waves in the sea. Xikong's moving. 202, 203, he stopped. Bei Ling won't stay still anymore either. 207, 208, 210. Interesting, with Mo Su getting into the top 50, the rankings are now thrown into chaos. There's bound to be a person who'll fall out of the top 50. If that's the case, then they'll definitely be nervous. The moment the discussions became louder, a sudden silence fell upon them. The sounds of speaking turned into the sounds of sharp intakes of breath. All of their gazes were focused on the one name climbing madly up the ranks. Even the old woman from Dark Dragon tribe, who was never interested in the ranks, opened her eyes and stared at the name on the eagle statue beside her jumping up the ranks. She looked calm. If there was any change in her thoughts, other people would find it hard to detect. However, the tribe leader of Black Mountain Tribe still did not look at the ranks. 49th. Mo Su, 205 steps. 46th. Mo Su, 213 steps. 42nd. Mo Su, 221 steps. 39th. Mo Su, 232 steps. 37th. Mo Su, 239 steps. 34th. Mo Su, 247 steps. Sikong stared at the ranks on the plate in his hand. His entire face was pale while his body trembled. It was as if he lost all his strength and fell to the ground. He gritted his teeth, but it turned into a sense of helplessness. He only managed to take 2 steps and could no longer bear the pressure brought about by the night. He had to stop. Bei Ling's face was bitter as he also gave up on continuing. He did not have any more strength to move. The pressure of the night was not something he could withstand. The others also stopped. As they looked at the shocking sight of Mo Su going from the 50th place to the 34th place, a sense of powerlessness arose within them. Su Ming stood at the 247th step. That was not even half of the mountain. Compared to the seemingly endless stairway, he was only a small distance up the stairs. Even so, even if it was just a small distance, as he stood there, it was as if he was standing in midair. There was no wind where he was, and due to the mist surrounding him, it was difficult for him to see the world outside. Yet as Su Ming lifted his head and looked at the moon, he felt as if it was now closer to him. Su Ming took in a deep breath and lifted his foot once again to land on the 248th step. The moment he stood there, the blood veins in his body increased once again, and it rose from 58 blood veins to 59 blood veins. Su Ming lowered his head and looked at the blood veins on his body. There was a smile on his lips. He could clearly feel the similar balance on the 248th step, just like in the previous 2 places. The sky was still dark. There was still some time before daylight, but Su Ming gave up on moving onwards. He sat down with his legs crossed on the 248th step and closed his eyes. He immersed himself within the circulation of his qi and began controlling it with finesse. Due to the increase in his blood veins, the difficulty in fine control had also increased. Yet Su Ming was not anxious. He did not want to give up on this sort of a rare chance. Besides, the purpose of the elder telling him the 6 numbers was for him to treasure the chance in the first place. When Su Ming went into meditation to control the speed of the circulation of qi in his body, time passed by slowly. Once the participants who were in the later 30s saw the final result, their uncertainty gradually turned into contemplation. As for those before the 34th place, they began to relax from their anxiety. Those within the field were filled with different theories and expectations once Su Ming stopped once again. Just who is he? Which tribe does he belong to? Why did he choose to move at night? Why did he stop once he reached 34th place? Is he tired, or does he have another plan? Can he maintain his rank, or will he fall out of the top 50, or will he get into the top 30, and even the top 20? Could he perhaps get into the top 10? Numerous questions appeared within the hearts of the people in the field. As the sounds of discussion gradually died down, they buried their queries in their hearts and waited for the moment they would obtain their answer. There were also quite a number of them who did not think highly of Su Ming. They believed that Su Ming would stop moving soon. More importantly, as daylight was about to arrive and the others would start moving once again, Su Ming's rank would fall. Yet no matter what, even those who did not expect too much from Su Ming had to admit that Mo Su's name brought about a change during that night. Due to that, his name would be remembered forever by all the people. In fact, even after many years had passed, they would still remember it. That night, Mo Su's brilliance was greater than the people's in the top 10 ranks, and it could even be said that it was greater than Yi Wang's. It was destined that Mo Su's name would be taken into account occasionally even when day arrived. No matter what the spectators' thoughts were, most of them held some form of expectation towards that name. Mo Sang was still smiling as he looked at Su Ming's rank. He might not know how and why Su Ming changed during the night, but he understood that everyone had their own secrets. As his elder and guardian, there were times where he did not have to know everything about his protege, but would have to protect him. Do you believe what I said now? For the first time since he came to this place, Mo Sang took the initiative to speak to Jing Nan. Jing Nan's face was calm as usual, but when he looked at the rankings, he frowned slightly. He became even more uncertain towards what Mo Sang said about Su Ming's birth. The night slowly passed by. The field sank into a peaceful silence. Almost everyone became quiet due to the different thoughts occupying their minds. Yet their gazes would still occasionally wander to the eagle statues and stay on the line belonging to Mo Su. After a long while, the first rays of light brightened up the horizon. A new day had arrived. Chapter 60. A shocking move. It was the second day of the first stage of the test. The moment the first rays of sunlight arrived, some of the pressure on the black misted mountain, where the ancients sealed the strange beast, left. The moment it returned to normal, Yi Wang was the first to move. He opened his eyes calmly and got up before moving towards the 601st step. He had no idea what happened last night. To him, who had always been prideful, there was no need to look at the plate. He still believed that there was no one who could become his opponent. The only person who could compete with him was himself. Yi Wang walked one step at a time up the stairs with great pride in his gait. He had a resolve. He must make it to the 900th step this time during the first stage of the test this time. He could still remember clearly that the final step he took last time was when he was in the 800s. He had been exhausted and was unable to move any longer. When he had to finally give up, he lifted his head and seemed to see a strange stone statue at the summit of the mountain far away. It was a pity, however, because he could not see the statue clearly due to the distance between them. Nonetheless, that one glance alone made Yi Wang become persistent. His pride and extraordinary talent would not let him rest. He would see that summit that no one has ever seen before. He longed to stand there and look down towards the people beneath him. He was prideful, and he continued walking further up the stairs within the mist in his fire-like clothes. He might not have looked at the rankings, but he knew that he was in the first place. Chen Chong was gritting his teeth as he continued mumbling under his breath and climbing upwards with all his strength. He might be panting harshly, but he did not stop to rest. Instead, he would occasionally look at the plate in his hands to check Bai Su's rank. Bai Su was still higher than him by 3 steps. Both of them seemed to have made rivals of each other and were constantly competing against each other. In truth, this had already happened since yesterday, and Chen Chong absolutely refused to resign himself to losing. You bastard! Choose either to walk faster and widen our distance so that I won't be bothered so much, or slow down a few steps. Aren't you tired? Well, if you're tired, I'm tired too. Chen Chong was drenched in sweat. It may be daytime, but he, who was currently in the 400s, could feel the pressure from the mountain beginning to suffocate him. Fatigue rushed forward through his entire body like a tidal wave. Bai Su was also panting harshly. He may have rested for an entire night, but as he continued climbing upwards, and the pressure continued increasing, the arrogance within his heart was gradually stifled. It was especially so when he saw Yi Wang, who remained in first place, walking steadily up the stairs in the 600s. It made a bit of respect grown in him towards the man. Without the desire to compete for first place any longer, he started directing his attention towards Chen Chong, wanting to win against him. To him, his opponent was only Chen Chong. Once he completely overcame this person, even if he lost first place to Yi Wang, his name would ring throughout all the tribes around the region. Especially since the elder was now, Bai Su smiled coldly. There was a hint of yearning and fantasizing within his eyes. Wu Sen's face was pale. He may have rested for an entire night, but his condition did not become better. As time continued trickling by, the weakness brought by the loss of the blood of corpses from his body began revealing itself. His face was dark as he continued walking forwards. He would occasionally look at the ranks in the plate and at Bai Su, who was ranked second. There was a look of discontent on his face. He was still ranked 12th, but Wu Sen knew that he no longer had any hope to enter into the top 10. The people before him were usually no match for him in the tribe, but now. Wu Sen sighed. Compared to them, Su Ming was much calmer. He did not continue climbing up the mountain but was sitting cross-legged on the 249th step, controlling the speed of the qi circulating in his body to a profound state. He was using every ounce of his abilities and the balanced pressure in this place to limit the increase and decrease of his blood veins to only one at a time. To him, exercising fine control was very interesting. This was the same to him as when he was quenching herbs, but this time, his body was the cauldron, the qi in his body was the flames, and his body was the herbs. He would control the strength of the fire and refine his body. As time passed by, the hundreds of people in the field outside looked at the ranks on the eagle statues and started talking among themselves again. There's no doubt that Yi Wang will be in the first place. He's in the 680s, no one can catch up to him. The second and third place are definitely Chen Chong and Bai Su. Look at them, those two are chasing after each other. I'm pretty sure they're competing against one another. It's a pity for Wu Sen. I wonder what happened to him. I just can't understand it. It's a pity for Mo Su too. It's already noon, but he hasn't moved at all. Now his rank has been overtaken multiple times, and he's at the 47th place. As they were discussing among themselves, one name ranked in the hundreds suddenly glowed with a gray light on the 9 eagle statues. As it flickered, the name turned gray. The sudden change immediately caught the crowd's attention, but they were not surprised. Someone gave up. Since the past, a huge number of abdicators will appear on the second day of the first stage of the test. They no longer have any strength to continue onwards and can no longer withstand the pressure in the mountain. If they don't leave, then they will face the danger of their blood pressure increasing. The air suddenly twisted, soon followed by a wisp of mist coming from the mountain towards the field. Once it disappeared, a young man around 20 years of age staggered and almost fell onto the ground with a pale face. It was clear that he was forcefully transported out. It was as if he felt uncomfortable with the gazes of the people on him. He lowered his head and quickly went to his tribe located in the distance. He sat down quietly with disappointment. The number of people who gave up like him increased in the afternoon. The names that turned gray, and the black mist that transported the people out of the mountain from the twisted space became the spectators' main attraction on the second day. The people who gave up would mostly sigh in disappointment and return to their tribes. There were quite a number of them who came from Windstream tribe. Those ranked in the hundreds have all given up. Hey, look, by tonight, all those ranked below the top 50 will give up, and by midnight, there'll also be a number of people who will give up. After all, even if they don't move forward during midnight, they won't be able to resist the incredible pressure in their exhausted state. Every single time during the first stage of the test, the rankings are not the only entertainment. Looking at the people who gave up is also a form of entertainment. Isn't it? It's especially so for those who got a pretty good ranking and gave up. Those looks of anxiety and fear that someone else will overtake them are really interesting. Just as the sounds of discussion echoed in the air, a person's face suddenly lit up in excitement as he looked at an eagle statue. Mo Su moved. The moment the words were spoken, it immediately caught almost everyone's attention. Numerous eyes fell upon the statues and on the line that belonged to Su Ming. Su Ming opened his eyes. After spending half the day exercising fine control, the blood veins in his body had reduced to 21, and he could no longer continue decreasing the number. Su Ming lifted his head and looked at the stairs shrouded by mist before him. He slowly stood up. He did not know that he was under the scrutiny of a lot of people. As of then, he only had two thoughts in his mind. Besides using this place to exercise fine control and train, he also did not want to let the elder down. I'll do my absolute best and give it my best shot. Su Ming was, after all, still a teenager. He had a teenager's spirit and determination. There was a flash in his eyes before he took a quick one step forward and landed on the 249th step. An incredibly strong amount of pressure pressed against him, causing Su Ming to tremble. What great pressure! Su Ming's face was pale. He felt as if there was a ferocious mythical creature roaring towards him down the stairs. Su Ming's eyes were firm. As the pressure came forth, He activated and circulated the qi in his body until all 59 blood veins appeared, then he rushed forward. 251, 255, 258, Su Ming took a deep breath and continued taking 20-something steps. When he stood at the 270th step, only then did he exhale slowly. There was sweat beading on his forehead. Without the help of the moonlight, walking on the stairs during the day to Su Ming was more draining. Yet the more it was so, the more firm he was in his resolution. More importantly, as the pressure increased on his body and lashed against the 59 blood veins on him, it made Su Ming feel as if his blood veins were about to increase once again. He knew that this was all due to him being able to discover the secret of the 6 numbers and continuing to exercise fine control over the circulation of his qi. Because of this, not only did he gain precise control over his qi, the potential within him was also forced out due to the fine control. It was especially so since the elder used the true awakening on him and Su Ming obtained a drop of berserker blood from him. Those gifts given to him by the elder were truly absorbed into himself once he practiced fine control multiple times on the mountain and was aided by the pressure as he continued climbing upwards. Su Ming gritted his teeth once more and continued moving forwards quickly. Muffled booming sounds echoed within his body as he continued moving ahead, and the 60th blood vein immediately manifested on his body. 61 blood veins, 62 blood veins. The moment Su Ming landed onto the 301st step, the 67th blood vein manifested itself with an explosive force on his body. The 67 blood veins surrounded Su Ming's entire body and made him feel as if he had an unlimited amount of energy. He may be drenched in sweat, but the unwavering determination in his eyes became even stronger. Su Ming did not know the amount of shock he brought onto the hundreds of people in the field the moment he moved from the 248th step to the 301st step. The tribe leader of Black Mountain Tribe looked towards the statue abruptly. There was a rare serious look on his face. 60 steps again. When that Mo Su doesn't move, he's unassuming, but the moment he does, he shocks the world. Ha ha, I was waiting for him to move all this while. He didn't let me down. Mo Su, get into the top 30. Even better, get into the top 10. He didn't move for the entire day. Even if he did now, he's only placed 36th. Unlike yesterday, there were hints of jealousy within the voice of the person who was pretending to be speaking in disdain among the sounds of discussion. That person who spoke suddenly widened his eyes and swallowed down the words he was just about to speak.